Good evening and welcome to the August 2nd meeting of the Lower Makefield Township Board of Supervisors. I'm calling the meeting to order and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take the roll. Supervisor Lewis.
Present.
Supervisor McCartney.
Present.
Supervisor Lundy.
Here.
Supervisor Grenier.
Here.
I am here. We have a quorum. And we will go to community announcements. Anybody from the audience or online have an announcement for the community? Not hearing any, I will read what I have. Lower Makefield Township will be hosting a blood drive for the Red Cross on Friday, August 18th, 2023, from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the meeting room of the Township Building, right here. To sign up to get more information, log on to redcrossblood.org and enter sponsor code Lower Makefield. Community Day will be held on August 26th. It's just a couple of weeks from now, 2023 at 1050 Edgewood Road. Join us for food, fun, rides, and more. For more information, visit lmt.org, special events. The Ad Hoc Property Committee is creating a long-term master plan for Patterson Farm and asks for community involvement. This township-owned property is at a crossroads with historic buildings requiring extensive repairs or they may be lost. Potentially millions of dollars could be needed, but such expenditures cannot be made only to have buildings saved and sit idle. The committee is working with a team of architects, engineers, and economists to determine best and compatible uses for the buildings that could benefit our community and thus support maintenance for future generations. The public is asked to become engaged by A, attending public Zoom meetings held the second Thursday each month, B, learning more at lmt.org/community/Patterson Farm, and C, attending future public forums. With that said, we will hold the rest of the agenda for now, and we will bring public comment up to the forefront, since we have a few people here who express concerns and might have comments or questions. So we will open the floor now to public comment. Anyone wish to? Come on up to one of the microphones, state your name, tell us if you're a Lower Makefield resident, and you have your 3 minutes or so.
Mr. Luzecki, I don't think your microphone's working.
Sorry about that. We'll get a tech out here in a minute. Nope, they're all off. Oh.
Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, you can hear me now? All right, very good. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Just repeat your name again.
my name is Greg Luzecki. I am a Lower Makefield resident. I live at 18 Mayfield Drive. I'm going to just start off, I guess, basically like a little bit of a stage setter. There's going to be other neighbors from our community that want to address specific points. They will follow me. I'll probably touch on some of them, maybe, but let me just run through a couple of things that are on my mind that I'd like to get a better answer to see what work has been done in the last 2 weeks to address some of the same questions that I had 2 weeks ago. Now, I know 2 weeks ago, you probably really couldn't have answered everything, okay? Because the event that we're talking about was a flooding incident that occurred on the 15th of July. The meeting that we had the first time, 4 days later, not a lot of time, I get it, but I did have some questions then, and ask them again. You've had 2 weeks to work the problem, and I'd like to see where we stand. So the first thing I'd like to ask for is, well, first I'd like to say, there's been work that started in our specific property on Monday with construction and April's property with construction to fill in the hole that was created with the rainfall that we had 2 weeks ago that basically wiped out, I would say, 75% of our yard and a measurable portion of April's yard as well. So I do appreciate the efforts for the teams getting together to get the construction guys on site to at least save the house. Okay, I do appreciate that. Could it be done faster? I'm not even going to go there. All right. As long as the effort's underway. What I would like to ask relative to that at this point, though, what is the rest of the plan to complete the work that has been started? And what I mean by that specifically, I have been told that you are working and putting together some kind of a phased plan to, one, save the house, and then two, to continue from there to repair the pipe that broke, fill that in, somehow brace all that new earth material. I'd like to know what the plan is after you get past your initial phase of saving the house, retaining the integrity of the house and its foundation and something to hold it in place. And I'd like to hear the plan to include what the milestones are. And I'd like to hear what your schedule is. Because if you can't tell me what your milestones are and what the schedule is, then by definition, you do not have a plan. So I'd like to hear that on those immediate points, and then we'll go from there. So I'd like to hear the detailed plan for what phases you think you're going to orchestrate, what those phases include, when they start and when they stop, specifically. I don't want to hear that we're looking at it. We have a short term and a long term. I'm going to offer to you, we don't have long term. We do not. We have an immediate short term issue that has been neglected. We've reported this stuff 2 years ago when we flooded. Nothing has been done in measurable improvement. Now we have a situation that resulted in much further catastrophe, loss of property, and let's not forget the fact that 7 people also died as a result of this stuff. I take it to be a direct, I take a direct contributor to this to be all the development that has been allowed and the lack of attention to the necessary infrastructure that might need to be in place and should be in place to protect us from the excessive water runoff that we're now seeing. I take that to be the township's responsibility, all of you people, to be your responsibility to protect us and keep water away. That's why we pay your salary. So, having said all that, and again, we need a short-term plan that includes keeping us safe, not something that's going to drag out for years. So I'd like to see that plan, and I'd like to see it on paper. I'd like to see a schedule. And I'd even almost say that you people, if you haven't done it, you should have this plan broken down like a work breakdown structure to the level that people know what they're responsible for to execute the plan within the timeline that's established so nothing falls through the cracks. Okay? As an example, right? If you need a permit to do something, then whose responsibility is it to make sure we get that permit? Who is the person by name? Is it a state problem? Is it a township problem? Do you need somebody else? Who is it? And do they know? And are they acting on it? That's what I think we need to see. And it's got to be a quick fix because we don't have time. We're still sitting in the middle of a man-manufactured flood zone at this point. And we just don't have any more time. Even this past Saturday, we were all together at basically a just take a break from all the cleaning and all the stress that we've had to deal with. And we sat down as a community, a block, and we had pizza and we hung out at one of the Hefferleys hosted. And Shelley was a sponsor working with Vince's to make all this happen. It was just a nice 2-3 hours just to relax. But what kind of broke that party up was, again, a short burst of rain that when we all left, I can tell you that whatever work you've done so far hasn't helped anything because the water that was pooling on both sides of the street was already starting to close to the center of the road again, to the extent that at least I was and other neighbors were at least wondering, do we have to move our cars now? Because I've lost 2 this past 2 weeks ago. I can't afford any more. This problem isn't fixed. It's not done. So what's the plan in detail to include a timeline for each phase? And when do you think we're done? And when do you think we can actually rest assured that you've actually done your job and we can feel safe?
So Isaac, I don't know if you maybe just to start, talk about sort of the scope incorporated into the emergency permit. Derek, you might want to come up as well, just to provide some additional information. But Isaac, if you want to start, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I'll speak on the engineering side, what's been taking place. So in the days, that followed the work that needs to be done out there, a geotech assessment. So we had our professional geotechnical engineer assess the area that needs work done. He put together an assessment and report, so that way that the fill and then the stuff that's putting it back together is going to be the right material. It's not going to be subject to getting quickly undermined again when rain comes in. So that has been completed. That set up the documents and the emergency permit plan. And there's a couple of agency players in that area. So you have the DEP, obviously, because the water is going out to a water body, DCNR with the canal there. And I know staff and our office has been working consistently, by the hour sometimes with both these agencies. The DEP plan and permit package has been submitted to them. That's an emergency permit. So the timeline they have for getting their, response back to us typically is like at a week at the most. But obviously we push to see how quickly they can get that back to us. Once that's, blessed by them, it's, full steam ahead on what's in there. And what's in there is, as you mentioned, that the hole is addressed to get refilled and regraded. The pipe replacement is in the emergency permit, as well as
Excuse me. When you say replacement,
yes.
are we getting a new pipe that's bigger? Are we getting two new pipes that are bigger? Or are you just restoring the existing pipe?
It's looking to completely replace the one that's busted and half still there. It's also looking to add a second one, so basically doubling the amount of pipe capacity that is at the bottom of the road there.
Okay, so when is that supposed to start?
As soon as that permit plan is approved and all blessed to go ahead, then
That is not a schedule.
well, like I said, the DEP typically is less than a week, but we'll have, obviously push them as much as we can. I would say the best answer I have is within the next week
Now,
for
are you,
that, and
are
then
you going to
would
do
start
that?
going.
Are you going to do that upgrade after you secure our house, or
I mean,
you're going to do
we're
something different in the
yeah,
middle?
I mean, we're hopeful that it can be all coordinated, that it can all turn into one project.
Are you going to do both sides of the house or just one?
And when you say, I'm sorry, when you say,
I
Mr.
have
Lozecki,
two
when-
storage trains, now two double storm trains on either side of my house.
Okay,
The one that failed right now, if you look at the front of the house, is on the left side.
okay.
There's the same
You're
thing
talking
on the
about
right side.
the other side.
Yeah, are you going to
Okay.
do that?
Derek,
No.
what's the plan for that's a replacement as well?
No, and the new design, the two new pipes will handle the 100-year storm event. So those two pipes are designed to handle the 100-year storm event.
What is a 100-year storm event?
I don't know how many cubic feet. I don't know what the cubic feet per second is off the top of my head, but the intent is to design for the 100-year storm, which is in addition to what's there. So we're not touching the one on the right-hand side of your house at this time. The intent of the permit is to replace and add an additional on the left-hand side of your house. I believe it's 2 36-inch pipes off the top of my head. I
Correct, yeah, and then in addition to that, obviously the work along where it comes out to the canal, which, from what we observed, really was where that scour and erosion started, digging out the whole hole that's there now. That is part of that permitted work would be to correct that, repair it, armor it, make it more robust, not only at the area where both those now dual pipes will come out, but also the one that you mentioned, I believe is 20 Maple Vale, 18 and 20, if I have the addresses right. They're like a property apart, yeah, or 16, 18.
would be to re-armor that outlet structure.
Correct,
on that
yeah.
side, is under that permit too, so we could re-armor that and secure that outlet of that pipe.
So I'm not sure if I agree with you that you don't have to do anything on the right side of the house. Because when our storm drains get overrun, they get overrun on both ends, and both ends end up in my driveway. So I don't think I like your idea of ignoring the right side drain. I think that's a mistake. It's wrong. I know it's wrong because I've seen it 4 times. And you seem to like to use the word 100-year storm event. My wife said it 2 weeks ago. All right. I'm a little older than her, but I'm not 400 years old, and I've gotten flooded 4 times. So throwing around that 100-year storm event really, in my mind, is discrediting your credentials to some degree, right? I told you on Saturday, this past Saturday, the water was already pulling up and starting to overtake the street with mud. We've seen it before. I know what this does. We were fortunate that the rain stopped, I think. I know you've done a little bit of work in cleaning some of the creeks or whatever you want to call it, a block away from me. That's nice, but that's still not the final answer. It's going to happen again.
No, I agree with you. It's not the final answer. And I won't,
And again,
if I may,
okay, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss the work that Derek and his staff has
Me neither.
cleaned
Me neither.
in the creeks, because that was a significant root source of one of the factors that led to a lot of the water gushing into the neighborhood during that storm.
Right.
So that's significant that area was cleaned and kind of all the debris and blockages in many ways was really cleaned out to
It helps.
even more so than it was before the
It
storm,
helps.
obviously.
Agree.
And as I mentioned last meeting, the kind of front approach that's being taken is that we're, supporting and making sure that it's sound structurally, and then repairing the items that were broken in this particular storm and just in general with the armoring and the pipes. I agree with you. That doesn't solve everything, but then following that, once that's secure and repaired, so everything is stable, then what is really a little bit of a longer process, obviously, is to see if there's other ways to better manage the water coming into the neighborhood.
So let's go back.
The 2 pipes, as you mentioned, so we're doubling that one pipe. The other one is the pipe that you're aware of that's still in there. Doubling the single pipe on that one side doubles the capacity. I'm just saying, from what it was able to have flow in there before, now is 2 compared to 1. So it doesn't matter what kind of storm year, ranking it is or whatever. It's just what was there before now is going to be doubled.
Okay, but
there may be storms bigger.
You're only doing it on one side. And I'm telling you, when we take in water, it comes in on both sides. So while you fixed it halfway, I'm telling you, it's not fixed from the other side, at least in terms of our immediate local pipes. Now,
But and that's
Okay.
what I'm saying. I agree. And this is the repairing the existing infrastructure that was pretty much blown out with that storm. I'm not saying this is the end all be all fix of everything, but this is how we're addressing as quickly as we can with the emergency permit approvals and all those things that have to be checked.
so this second pipe that you're going to put in, at least on the left side of the house, that's going to happen right after you preserve the land around my house?
That would
Or
be
is that
done
yet
with
another phase?
Yeah, no, that's going to be done concurrently with
So that's
basically
part of it.
repairing the one that's
Okay.
busted. Correct.
Yeah, so our,
Permits received.
yeah, so our
Once the
intent
permits
is,
is released, yes.
right, our intent is to continue our coordination with the Department of Environmental Protection. They've been very cooperative thus far in terms of being responsive. And again, our hope is that this stabilization effort will just sort of roll into the additional capacity that's being added with pipe.
Okay, but I'm still not hearing the schedule.
Yeah.
You don't have a plan unless you have a schedule,
Well-
a real schedule.
Well,
people-
I think the governs
Hang
right
on.
now is really hearing back for that emergency permit. Like
It's
I
the
said,
permit,
I
yeah.
can't give you a definite date of when they're going to send it back to us within the next week.
You can put together a schedule. And
Oh, we
if
know
there's-
we'll start right
if
after.
there's
that.
a-
We're ready to go.
You can put together a schedule, and if for whatever reason the schedule slips, you know who to go get. But right now, you've got work being done to restore the house, which is great. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay. We know we have a busted pipe. We know even repairing that, its current diameter is not even close to sufficient with what we've been seeing. Doubling it and increasing capacity will certainly help. Like I said, I still worry about the right side. I want to say it again because I don't know if anybody heard me. When we take water in, the water comes in from both of those sides. So you fix it on one side, that'll help, but we still have a problem on the right side. Okay. So I'd like to know if you have a longer thinking for a better solution, how long is that thinking? Because again, I'm going back to, I don't have years for this. at all. Every time it rains, I have to live in my home worrying about losing cars, flooding out an entire lower and upper level of the house. Now I don't have a lawn that I can necessarily bank on, right? Plus on top of all that loss, which I can't afford to do again. There's stuff I already conceded and know. Our family has already conceded and knows they have to do without things we had before, that we paid for, we owned, we took care of it. Now it's gone. Because again, I go back to overdevelopment, inappropriate prioritization of what the job should be for this community to keep us safe and to keep this stuff from happening again, right? I don't need, everybody has their pet projects on this board. If you tell me you don't, I'm gonna have a word for you. I don't need a new soccer field. I don't need a new Wegmans. I don't need a dog park. They're all cute, makes the neighborhood sellable, but if you can't live in it because you run the risk of getting washed away or drowned, then that is a priority problem that needs to be fixed immediately, not a multi-phase plan that drags out for many years. And I heard what you said. So far, I'm with you with what you think the plan is to get at least the pipes back in there, okay? I still want to see and hear a detailed plan with a schedule, milestones and a schedule for what you're going to do where, further upstream, upwards to even the Chamonix Creek, because it all starts there at least. What are you going to do to keep that water basin, when it overflows, away from us? Everything we've talked about so far is at my immediate yard. It's never going to be able to tackle all that. What you said will help. I think you're still missing it on the right side of the house. I think you're taking shortcuts there. I don't want my bushes ripped out. I don't want Mrs. Gamble's or Mr. Gamble's shed ripped out. But then at the same time, what good is having shrubbery in a shed when the rest of your house is going to be underwater every time it rains, potentially? So I would like to see all that laid out. And if you think you have the luxury of time, you're wrong. And if you think you're going to give us some kind of a plan and a proposal that's going to take longer than by the end of this year, then that is unacceptable, completely unacceptable. You need to take further action. You need to step on the gas for this harder. And that's what I'm asking for. So I'd like to see that plan. I'd like to hear it. I'm glad you're starting to think about it. Okay. And I do appreciate what you said, but there's a big picture problem here. And again, people have died over this. Two of them were kids, one an infant. They'll never have an 8th grade graduation. They won't have a high school graduation. They won't go to college. They'll never get married. They'll never have a family. They'll never potentially be able to carry on the family name. That is unacceptable under any circumstance. So any pet project that's going on right now really needs to be put on the back burner and get this done already. So again, the detailed integrated plan, all phases, and I'm hoping there's not 15 phases, because that alone tells me that you're not doing anything quick short term. But what is it? When's it start? When's it finish? And who's doing what to who? Because we have seen cases in the last 2 weeks that this board does not necessarily communicate well with each other for everything as well as you could or should. And that includes the contractors that we have in our house right now with their construction equipment. They have a job, but they don't necessarily know what their boundaries are necessarily. Maybe it's been fixed and patched, but there have been cases where we talk to one, we may talk to Dan, and then we'll be comparing notes with another neighbor who talked to some other guy, right? And there's no connection. So integrated plan, schedule. What is it? You had 2 weeks to think about it. I think you've only taken it honestly. I think, honestly, and I could be wrong, but I think you took it only as far as what you're going to do to fill the hole in our house and possibly what you're going to do with the pipe, but you're missing the right side of the house with that, at least.
So, I hear you.
So what are you going to do?
Good question.
What?
Good question.
I'd like to hear the plan.
We have spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out what to do next.
And your answer is?
Answer is, we're, at the immediate is to take care of the bad pipe, replace it, add a different pipe, fill in the soil with, proper soil, so we hopefully won't have a sinkhole again. We have emergency permits with DEP, DCNR, that hopefully in the next few days, we'll be able to start work. Derek can fill you in with that. I would ask, instead of asking members of the board who have other, things to do most of the time, except when they're at the meetings, we have a professional staff that's more than happy to answer any questions. If you're not getting the proper answers from our staff, then of course.
I
talk
just
to
want to
us.
see the plan. I want to see the plan and the schedule.
And as I understand it.
Yeah, again, we're not discounting anything you're saying, and we understand the need for a plan, a strategic plan, a comprehensive plan. And so, as
Integrated plan.
an integrated plan, correct.
That means
No, understood.
Everybody's on the same page and everybody knows who's doing what to whom and when you need it.
Correct.
And
And
it's
so-
all inclusive, not just around my immediate house,
Complete,
not a block away,
completely understand.
right?
Yep, completely understand. And so we've started to have those conversations with other levels of government. So there's county resource that's available. There's state resource that's available. There's federal resources that are available, both technical resources and financial resources. So we've started to lay the groundwork to be able to leverage those resources to create that integrated plan that you're talking about, that strategic, comprehensive, integrated plan.
When will you?
Additionally, well, again, we're working as hard as we can to find out those things. We met with, Congressman Fitzpatrick's office, for example, today, talking about federal resources that are available. Again, both on the financial side as well as the technical side. PEMA was obviously out today doing assessment. Looking at them to help identify resources that are available. I've started to have conversations with consultants that have done this work in other areas of the Commonwealth that have taken a more integrated, holistic, comprehensive approach to watershed based planning. So that conversation is taking place. So you're absolutely correct. There's not a single solution to this issue. And I'm not just saying this and trying to be nebulous or whatever it may be, but we are working to try to identify those resources, leverage those resources, and ultimately develop that plan that you're speaking about. That plan's not going to be developed in, 2 weeks. It's going to take,
Have an idea in 2
and
weeks.
I'm articulating an idea, and it's an idea, quite frankly, that's not been articulated, I think, previously. So we are working through these issues to, again, try to leverage all of these resources that are available, both governmental resources as well as, technical resources that are available through consulting relationships. 100% agree with what you're saying. Not going to sit here and dispute it. And we understand the importance of it and the importance of making sure that we're moving in a rapid fashion. Completely understand.
Comment on resources if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Like I said before, right? It's okay if you want to
Mm.
reach out to other available resources for funding, if you think that's going to help you.
Yeah.
But this is not a poor township.
Correct.
I told you before, I don't need a Wegmans.
Right.
I don't need another soccer field. I don't need a dog park, right? I need to keep us safe, people safe. That's what this comes down to. Even beyond the loss of property, which was significant for us,
Oh, absolutely.
right? This should be a priority. You have money. Get it out of the spots it doesn't belong in and put it to the right spot here. Now.
First of all, everyone on this board unanimously takes this of the highest priority. All our resources right now are going to fix the problem. We have the problems that we can fix as a township, we'll do everything we can to fix it. But as you said, this goes way beyond the boundaries of this township. We are already working with county state, and federal officials, working every day with them so that we can develop a more extensive plan. But in the
With a
meantime,
schedule.
we don't know what that holistic
If you don't have a schedule, you
Sir,
don't have a
sir,
plan.
can I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. We are Lower Makefield. We've contacted, Mr. Kratzer has done everything he can to engage everybody that is part of this problem to seek a solution. We have local issues that we must fix, and we're doing that. Derek is working overtime, his staff is working overtime. Mr. Kessler and his crew are working overtime to try to figure out the best way to do it. Another pipe, we started a mitigation plan to go into the woods. We have another plan that will deal with the water coming down Highland, digging and dredging the creek along Taylorsville, the culvert there. All these things are already in plan, but we can't touch a lot of this stuff until we get the permits. The state is already understands and is hopefully in a matter of days, we already have the people ready to do it. It's just a matter of days till we get the permit. The crews are ready. We just need the permission to get it done. Am I as frustrated as you that it didn't start 2 weeks ago? Yes. However,
I don't think so. Now, let me know when I can speak.
listen to me. Listen to me. We are all your neighbors. You might not think so. You might think we're some high-paid professional politicians. No, we are your neighbors. We understand. We were there. Mr. Grenier was there cutting trees and back, a couple of years ago in the last flood. The water up to his knees. We understand the problem. We all travel these roads. We all want to get to Washington Crossing. We want to get to wherever we're going. Taylorsville Road is very important to us. We got it fixed. We cleaned, Derek's crew has cleaned up we probably did it a little illegally, but we did it anyway because it's raining. We don't, until the rainy season is over, which is never around here. We understand what happens. We've lived here for a long time. We've seen what happens to your neighborhood. We're trying to do the best we can. I understand it's not good enough, but we're doing what's possible. We're doing, these guys are, I am proud of the way they've been working to fix the issues. We've been, we had a mitigation project that wasn't finished. The rain came, it didn't work because it wasn't finished. I apologize for that, if that makes it feel better.
It does not.
Of course not, because
I think you
it's still
failed to
happening.
do your job.
Well, I'll tell you something. I do what I can. We do what we can. I wish I had a crystal ball that told me the 6 inches of water would drop into the neighborhood within 2 hours. I wish I knew that 7 people would die in Upper Makefield. And to think about that we're responsible for the deaths in Upper Makefield, I find that to be, and I understand your pain from the damage in your yard, but there's boundaries, sir. There's boundaries, sir.
All right.
And I really would appreciate that when my staff, when our staff, when your staff says that they're doing everything possible to fix it and make it better, I would just ask that you say, thank you, but.
I did when I started the meeting. I
Well,
said, thank you for the work so far.
okay. So
What's the rest of the plan?
you heard the rest of the
And
plan.
you said you're Lower Makefield Township. Guess what? I'm Lower Makefield. Okay.
I
I
understand.
live
So am
here.
I.
Okay.
So
All I'm asking for is
the
a plan and what the schedule is. That's it.
the thing is, the plan was already stated. I don't know what else to say.
I didn't hear a plan stated. A plan is not a plan unless you have a schedule.
Well,
What's the schedule now? So you said you need your permits and stuff. My question is, who's the person doing the follow-up to pursue that?
I'll talk to my stormwater management member of the board, Mr. Grenier.
No, to your point, because we speak the same language here. And this would be directed towards our staff and our engineer. When we talk about a plan, right? The idea is when we talk about a schedule, we're talking about something related to it looks like a Gantt chart that has predecessor, successor tasks, and we know if something gets pushed back, that's the critical path item. Just standard schedule language. That's what we're talking about, right?
That's what I'm talking about.
I hear you loud and clear. I'm even drawing it on my,
From the Chamonix Creek on down to our property.
right.
That's
And-
what I want to see.
And there's immediate term. So there's work that's already been for every, I know you know this because it's happening next door. So there's the immediate term where the work that's been already completed that we were able to do without any additional permits because we got permits in place from other stuff that we were able to extend quickly through meetings with DEP and making some very quick phone calls. There's the work that, and by that I mean the work in the stream where we could do along Taylorsville and up the road a little bit where there were other issues. And then we also want to capture the immediate schedule, which is essentially the work at your homes, right? There needs to, and even that needs to be broken down into a more detailed schedule because there's the work that we can do without an emergency permit, which has already started,
Exactly right.
right? Then there's the work that we have to wait for the emergency permit, which hope, and I know this is I live in this world in terms of the permitting, so it drives me crazy that I can't say they're going to issue it on X day at X hour because that's not how they work, but we can ride them like you wouldn't believe. And so we can bird dog those permits so they can get done. Emergency permits, we did meet with them. I forget which day we met with them in both here. I was remote and in the office. I think it was last Wednesday.
Remember them.
To get them on, when I say them, I mean everyone at DEP on board to issue that permit per the plan that Isaac described. So that's the emergency permit that will be the folks, the contractors that are already there will then move to execute that. So what I would like to see, because I don't know the answer to this yet myself, is making sure that we have the contractors lined up and ready to go so there's no stoppage of work, to make sure that we have all the materials, including pipes and other things, because that is a procurement process that sometimes needs to take place. So we need to make sure that's in line, when we're going to get it, who we're going to get it from, where we're going to stage it, how we're going to implement it, all of the stuff that I know you're thinking of, right? That's a construction project. And then from there, are there any limitations within the conditions of the emergency permit that we can or can't do immediately behind your home? I know we've heard about DEP potentially needing to issue another permit to finish the work at the banks of the canal, to armor, to do the final stuff, that last 20 feet or so, whatever it is, to make that happen. So we need a detailed schedule for that too.
That's all in the EAP. It's all the same.
It's all going to be in the,
All in the
so it's
same-
going to be even
all-
faster than what we originally
Correct.
thought, which is good. That being said, we still need, that means we can, once we get that emergency permit, we don't have to wait those couple of months that we thought we might have to.
We don't have a couple more.
Well, I know, that's why it's.
That's
important,
why I
the
think you
emergency
need to
permit.
lay it out on paper. How bad is it? And I said before, you need to step on the gas. Sometimes you need to just see it in front of you, right? And you mentioned the critical path. That's all
Yeah.
good. But there could be little things that just put a foot in it, and now nobody's following up, and it gets further delayed. In the meantime, we are sitting there vulnerable.
So can I, if the board doesn't mind, can I, and I think you're doing this, but I'd like to see it too. Can we put together a project schedule, whether it's, I usually, we use MS Project or whatever.
Whatever tool you
software
want.
you use to make sure that we have all that stuff lined up, including the stuff that we know is going to happen, the stuff that in the immediate, this is like, I'm trying to schedule like level 3 schedule where it's every widget you can imagine, where we can follow that process, and to completion is immediately the work at the homes in the neighborhood that'll get done, including the new paving that's coming on, because that's part of it too. And the work that I don't know the deal with the when we can do the work yet to put the new inlets in Highland. I don't have a schedule for that I've heard of late. So I'd like to see that too, because that's still immediate term stuff that we should have ready to go, because that's stuff we've been trying to push for a while. And I know we applied for a grant, but we've talked about possibly trying to do that before a grant. There's some conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the majority of that second phase has already been completed with the work that Derek had done in the stream, with the exception of the inlets on Highland. So
Right.
we, to Mr. Luzecki's point, at this point, it probably makes sense to just do it.
Do it. Yeah.
and
no,
self-fund it. And so,
That's,
the notion of waiting for grants all the time is not reality.
and we have money that I know we have a fair amount of money that we haven't spent on projects that might be available. We have
Right.
other, whether it's been allotted to a project or it's not been allotted to a project, we have money to do. These inlets are not a huge ticket item to
Yep.
begin with.
Absolutely.
So all that stuff, I think through everything in the neighborhood, everything at Highland, any additional stream cleaning that may need to be done, I think all of that can be put in a pretty clear schedule. I think that can be pretty
Well,
clear.
the thing is, this is, maybe we'll settle this today.
Yeah.
So we have the money.
Yeah.
Through maybe the sewer fund or whatever.
Right.
Can't we just, since most of the other stuff with the creek and everything is already taken care of, can we just do it and
Yeah.
then maybe get
we-
reimbursed by a grant?
Phase two, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you and I had a conversation about procuring the material and installing those inlets. I
you
don't
need
know
a
if you had a
motion?
chance to.
After the rain event, I know
Make it.
Isaac's team went back just to recheck the design and maybe make some modifications to it with the outfall. So we'll have to check with Isaac's team just to ensure. I know that they went back to just double check everything on that second phase. But as long as they're good with it and comfortable, we can move forward with that. Yes.
Can move forward?
Yeah.
Because we're still under declaration of emergency and we need to deal with this. So we don't have to add this to the agenda unless you want to add this to the agenda by vote.
Yeah, I mean, we've already started to look at implementation of those inlets at this point, and Derek
Internal.
So-
to internally
so,
perform.
Can we make this happen? We have a phase two plan.
You know,
They're just double checking everything. Yes.
So,
Yeah, as
I
we
mean, we
mentioned
can,
last meeting,
we
we wanted
can-
to make sure everything would work as is intended down there with the design storms and everything. So, a fresh look just to make sure that what's put in would help that area as much as possible.
whoever wants to bring
Yeah.
a motion can make the contingent.
Yeah, and can I ask, Mr. Truelove, could you give some guidance in terms of what type of motion? Because we do know the plan is being, this particular design that we're talking about is being reviewed. So we want some flexibility so that it can move forward is my,
I would think you want to add a motion to the agenda to direct all township professionals and staff to take all necessary steps to implement phase two. And for the staff to also review the appropriate sources of funding that are available in the township to help achieve that implementation.
so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment?
So like I said, all I'm asking for is an area schedule with a timeline because you need to go through that exercise because
You
you
vote
will.
for this, funding for phase two is
Just
done.
adding it to the agenda.
Just
Not
add it.
even- Not even voting
Oh,
on it
yeah, we're
yet.
just adding it to the agenda so we can go through.
Okay, because
So-
I'm just gonna say that when you go through that exercise, I believe you're.
Let's just get it on the agenda, then you can make your comments about what you want done.
There's going to be another motion.
There'll be another motion.
Today, or are we doing it
Right,
right?
right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Under the rules.
I don't know how this works.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll vote yes.
the rules require us to now, if it's something's not on the agenda, to add it on the agenda, we have to make a motion, add it, and then we actually have the substantive motion, so.
I will be
So The
quiet.
question is to
That's
add it
right.
to the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Now,
Now I'm good.
No,
no, it's on-
Now
it's on
the
the
motion would
agenda.
be to
Now the motion,
I'm learning too, so go ahead.
take whatever I said on the first one.
And if
For
you
for
can-
that, those
direct
steps to
all
be taken.
staff and appropriate contractors to add, to review and add what necessary steps to stage 2 of the project, is what you said the first time.
Yeah, and
that's. the-
all
that's the
necessary
motion.
funding that may be available to achieve that.
So am I allowed to just say so moved?
Absolutely.
All right, good.
Yep,
Second.
that's why we have videotape.
Got a motion made and second to once it's reviewed, approve the project and pay for it. Any comments by the board?
I just have a question for Isaac. Is this gonna mitigate future issues down and at that corner?
What I can say is the phase two is a significant piece of the inlet and pipe system that was for the overall project. So the ones that, obviously people noticed that one intersection was like that phase one, brief portion there. This is looked at as really addressing some of the issues that we see with water bypassing that Highland Ave area. So we do feel like it's going to make a nice improvement to that. Like I said, I mean, as with stormwater projects, we can't guarantee, all storms are managed completely with the pipes and inlets, but it's definitely a large improvement to handle water coming through that area.
What would guarantee that there would be no issue? And you can go as far as saying, 18 and 20 Maple Vale can't have structures there anymore. We need to create a waterway.
Or if I can amplify, if it's legal, right? At least give me something that I only have to worry about 100-year storm. At least give us that.
Well, no, I'm
Right.
talking about, no structures on either of those lots.
That's a tricky question to answer because I think that any developed area, whether it's dense or not, if it's developed, you're trying to manage and direct the water in a man-made way. So there are, storm events that, overwhelm that. And you really can't guarantee any system is going to be good for all storms that come through. What we can do obviously is look at the history of water that's come through there, all the data and the charts and everything that in the engineering and the stormwater world looks at what your most likely events are. And then you go off of the obviously recent history and history of what that area has experienced in past events. So as far as the sizing of systems and what you put in for infrastructure, you're limited sometimes with just the topography, right? You mentioned putting the second pipe there. If we could put a 60-inch pipe in there, I'd love to do that, but it doesn't work because the ground, if you put a 60-inch pipe in, you'd be below the canal, right? When you come out. So there's limitations that you have to have as like your parameters, and you just maximize how much you can safely get the water through without property damage. So it isn't a fix-all, end-all project, but it definitely is addressing items that need improvement, and once in place, should really show improvement for, I would say, most storms that come through, most regular storms, yeah. And like I mentioned last time, the larger events, as with any area, if your pipes and inlets can only handle so much, you look at ways that the water can be managed on the surface, right? If it's flowing down the curb lines or if it's raising up, are there areas that can be kind of bermed and things to do on the surface to direct areas of water? And that's one of the things we kind of got in discussion about from that phase one, where it comes out in the open space. Can there be more done to really direct that water, avoid it going its own way? So kind of a long way to answer your question, but we do feel like that being installed definitely is an improvement. And for schedule wise, what we provided tonight is really the most up-to-date, honest dates of what we have ongoing. I think working with the staff and putting together, again, chart type of schedule, including the phase 2 work with Highland, is something that we'll look to do as quickly as possible and look to have definitely before, we all meet again and as soon as we can get it out to everybody.
And to your point, I mean, I appreciate everything you said.
You don't get to go yet.
Sad?
The board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I don't know your rules.
You can stand to look pretty for the
Eric.
wood.
So Isaac, two things. One, do you see any reason why we can't take the entire project plan to use MS Project or whatever and make a read-only view that people can see online in real time so that they can watch things occur or not occur, right? So that they'll get a sense of where things are at and they understand timelines and circumstance. Now, we would do this, so that people understand projects are always constantly in a state of flux. Times move, people don't answer things on an appropriate time, but tracking that so you know where we're at on time schedule, whether we're on scope, on budget, on time. So that's very clear easy for people to see. That would, I think, make a difference for the community to understand and help lessen some of the questions and concerns we might have. Now, I would understand you would be concerned about timing in general and specific tasks, and you may not agree with all the decisions that the engineers have made or what have you. We fully understand that, but the premise would be, we want you to get access to that information in close to the real time as possible. Is that something we think we can get done, Isaac?
Yeah, I don't see an issue with that at all. And that's some working with Mr. Krasner, we can identify the best way to get that together.
And associated with that, based on what I'm hearing, and I want to make sure I have this right, so that you believe once we've completed some of the elements of what was previously phase 2, Derek, you'd suggested that would be a significant improvement where we're at now in terms of water capacity. And I don't want to use those terms, but a 1% chance within a year, that we'd have a storm event that would exceed the capacity of the changes. Is that where we're at now, we think?
What I'll say again, I guess, is that the infrastructure that's not there now, right, in this particular storm especially, the water was bypassing that area and everything was winding up following all
Right,
the way
yeah.
down to Maple Vale. Right? So as far as predicting the weather, I've given that up a while ago. So, but for a storm, I think that the design of the stormwater that it's intended to manage without any kind of overflow and, any kind of flooding issue, I think is going to be a definite improvement to that stretch
Okay.
of that phase 2 area.
And to that end, I know we've talked, there's the FlowCAD and some of the other stuff, and we've got it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done that considers other sources of where water comes into this neighborhood, right? And if we're going upstream, that's going to take time. You gotta understand, because we have the FlowCAD and all the analysis that would need to be done. But you'll have an estimate of the number of gallons of water per minute or second that we think we can handle right now.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
phase
it would have usually it's in like a cubic feet per second
Yeah.
of how much those pipes that would be put in can actually transport during.
And what are we looking at for cubic feet per second with post phase 2?
That I'll have to just verify and get back to
Yep,
you. Yeah, I don't
and
have that
that
number
would
today.
be helpful so that we can get some sense of what that would be, and then, we could start assessments on that.
If I could just interject, I know there's a pending motion, but the chief has brought to my attention that one thing we probably want to do as well is add to the agenda to extend the emergency declaration to the maximum of additional 7 days too. Anything like that will probably help us, not only in terms of expediting emergency permits, things like that, but also maybe even getting responses from different.
We can do that
Well,
motion after.
after this one. I just want to, because I didn't want to forget. That's why I said that. So anyway, thank you.
Mr. Rayner.
Sure. I'm obviously 100% in favor of directing any monies that we can to get this done yesterday. I've been talking about this for a while now. At the same time, so it's going to help, as you were saying, with smaller storm events, more regular occurring storm events that do cause issues in the neighborhood that we've seen forever. I know on Saturday when you all were getting that rain, I happened to be getting takeout in the borough and looking at their parking lot getting filled up, and I think I got a text message showing what was going on there, so I immediately forwarded that and drove over to check it out. So even if what I'll say is even if the event doesn't actually end up being big, when you still get some ponding water after what just happened, it's scary. It's traumatic. So I get that. So we need to do what we can with the plans that are in place and get them done ASAP. I'm obviously in favor, as I said last time and previously, of looking at a larger watershed approach. The watershed, technically the Maple Vale watershed is quite small, but in reality, when larger storm events happen, it bleeds over into other watersheds that are much larger, that go at least a couple miles up the road and cover several hundred acres. You happen to be at the bottom of that one, unfortunately, with the canal there. But I do think, and we've started these conversations already, the long-term plan, which we also have to develop another type of schedule for, and different types of plans, and this will be multifaceted across the entire township, I think, will be to address how we can, from an engineering perspective, deal with growing storm events with climate change and everything else, how we can better force future developments that we may have to approve from some level, but how we can address our ordinances such that we can further improve our stormwater management when the developer builds something, and then look at other ways that we can further improve all of our stormwater management throughout the township, all 150 or basins that we have that the township has had to take ownership of. So it needs to be that big plan that you're talking about, with the schedule, like you said. And I'll go one further. Not only a schedule and a plan, we need funding.
You have,
Yeah,
you have money.
and I agree with you.
You have my money.
Exactly. So I think we need to start allotting that to the right things. But anyway, I'm getting off of this motion a little bit, but
So
I'm in
I
favor
want
of
a
it.
point of order, so I am closing general public comment. Wait, hold on.
There's rules that have to. be
Hold your
followed, so
horses.
Please listen.
Everything's fine. We're entertaining a motion now. So there'll be public comment on the motion. We'll vote on the motion and then I'll open public comment up again.
No, then we'll do another motion to extend the.
Oh, well,
emergency
there's
management.
another
Then
motion.
we'll be-
Yeah.
public comment.
It's just technical stuff, but we're going to bring back public comment. You got it.
Can I
Okay.
sit down? Because I pretty much.
Well,
Yeah.
unless
Yeah.
you could sit down, or unless you want to address the motion on the
But
table.
he can't come up yet.
But we still have, anybody else want to comment on this motion?
No, let's-
Okay, now, any public comment on this motion? Not hearing any, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have a 5-0. Okay, now there's another motion we have to,
Chair Weiss, I make a motion that we extend the emergency declaration that the Lower Makefield Township is currently operating for the maximum extent of time,
Additional 7 days.
which is an additional
Which is
7
the
days.
maximum.
Second,
okay, any public comment by the board? Any comment by the board? Any public comment on the extension of the emergency declaration? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Actually, we have
have
to
it
add it to the
five.
agenda first.
Oh,
Hey.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
I didn't make up the rules.
that's all right.
No, and I'm sorry
Get
that I
that
missed
motion.
that one, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna rescind that motion and start with Chair. I'd like to add a motion to the agenda to consider extending the declaration of a public emergency for an additional 7 days.
second,
Motion made by Supervisor Bundy, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to extend the declaration of emergency for an additional 7 days, maximum allowed. Any comments by the board? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand.
aye,
Aye. And now I'll make a
Now.
motion to approve the extension of the state of emergency for an additional 7 days.
second,
Motion made by Supervisor Bundy. Excuse me, seconded by Supervisor Grenier to extend the motion, to extend the declaration of emergency by 7 days. Any more comment? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
aye.
Ayes have a 5-0. Okay, good, done. We open public comment.
Okay, so I'm just going to finish. I think I said everything on this. And I appreciate your work. I do. Don't get me wrong. And I agree with what you said because that's what I've been alluding to, right? An integrated plan with a schedule to include upstream infrastructure design improvements to keep water away from us, right? And I know you can't have all the answers in a day, but I think you need to lay this out in front of you on paper because you're also going to end up finding out what you didn't think of yet.
We agree with
And
you.
you don't know that. So I think it's important.
We agree with you. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello.
Hi.
My name is April Bolwage Clower. I'm a resident of Lower Makefield Township at 20 Mapleville Drive. First, I want to thank everybody who's come out again to help us. Derek, David, Dan, you guys, John, you've been out. We've had you into our homes. We've been very vulnerable, very transparent about what's happened to our families. So the questions I have for you regarding PEMA and FEMA assistance for the families themselves. We understand that there may be a threshold for PEMA and FEMA, and we're wondering if you could answer some of those questions for us, like how many families have reported damage? We know of about 30. We don't know if there's more. What is the dollar amount that you've collected through the township to get an idea of, is this even a thing? Is PEMA, are we well below that they can help us? How do we know where we stand in this process?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chief can, in terms of number, I think the general sort of what we've collected thus far is probably about 1.6, 1.7 the last time I looked at it. Our understanding of thresholds in terms of individual assistance, based on an email that we had received from PEMA today, is 100 to 200 affected homes. But again, that's over probably the course of multiple jurisdictions, I would imagine. So not only obviously are there the 30 or so properties that, you know, folks have reported damage to us thus far, and Chief may have a more accurate number. There's obviously impact in other jurisdictions, right? So there was impact in Upper Makefield. So I believe it relates to the event. And so that's the information that was conveyed to us via email today. I don't know if you have anything else.
I don't have anything to add other than you're correct. It does go by the event. So that would be helpful, okay, to you. And as far as the threshold, I mean, we had probably more than 50 assessors from Pima come out today. They met with Derek. They met with Mike Kirk in my office. They did a pretty comprehensive assessment. They may need to come back to look again at some other issues, but let's not get stuck on a threshold yet. Let's see what they have to say. We're not sure ourselves yet what they're going to come up with. We're not sure what the head of Pima is going to say or what the governor is going to say. So let's just wait and see what they come up with for right now. We don't have the answers for that right now, but they'll probably talk to the county emergency management, and we'll coordinate with them, and we'll try to get you an answer as soon as they know.
Thank you.
Okay.
One of the things that kind of surprised most of us who had the county come out to how surprised the people from the county were. County officials came out, didn't have any idea this happened. They didn't know what happened before. So part of our concern is the escalation of these incidents and them making it to the place they need to get to quickly, because FEMA just came out today. They came out with a lovely handout of organizations that do volunteer work to clean out homes, take away debris.
Yeah, VOAD. Well, yeah,
Wasn't even
they
in
mention
our-
that.
we got
Yeah.
that information. This was a crisis, something help. We got that today. We couldn't wait for them to come out to tell us someone could help us clean out our homes. People have been out of pocket with that. And in terms of, we understand it's a personal property, we understand what's covered and what's not covered by insurance, but it was your pipe that caused us to lose our property and the property that's on top of it. And I'm pretty sure if one of my neighbor's trees would have fallen on my house, it would have been their responsibility to pay for my roof to be fixed. So we're wondering what the township is going to do to help us. We're not looking for money. We don't want to hand out. We don't want to be here right now. But we can't continue to fund this ourselves when we pay for insurance and we pay for taxes. So I would like to know what the township plans to do to assist the families who've been affected by this, and especially in the event that Pima disqualifies us for whatever reason, that FEMA's out of the question. We've had a number of wonderful organizations in the community reach out to us, specifically St. Ignatius Church, the Knights of Columbus, the Lions Club. We've had awesome community support. But it was your pipe. What are you going to do to help us? Because we're already out of pocket and we couldn't wait for permits to go through and to find out what's going to happen next. So I would just like to know how you might be able to assist our families.
Well, it's a big question you asked. And we were just contacted by United Way. So we're gonna have meetings with United Way. It's an umbrella group of many, many organizations that will hopefully help your neighbors and you. There's state funding. We're, you know, Senator Sanaciro, Representative Perry Warren. Everybody's working the issue. The county's now involved. I can't give you specifics because it's just so new. But, you know, this board will support anything that we can do to make you as whole as possible.
Thank you. And is there, can we have a point person? Can we have somebody we follow up with on these things? Because
Yeah,
Council
I'm happy
manager is the person
to, you know, any questions you have regarding that issue, I'm happy to help.
And we will put like plans, anything that we have in writing
that's all.
will be put,
I know what's going on.
will be put on the website, lmt.org. It'll be bannered, so you will see it. Our community development, you have a question on your property, you go to lmt.org, you'll see the requests. Just ask the question, you'll get an answer online. But if you ask for, you know, what are we doing? And you want to know, and you can't get somebody on the phone, just go to the website, it'll be there. You can ask questions, you can send us an email. All our emails are public. Our phone numbers are public.
Yep. You
can reach us anytime. If you leave a voicemail, we'll get back to you, usually within the day. So that's all. All we ask is that if you have a question, try the township first because they're the professionals.
Yeah, I'm happy to help.
And then if you need our help, we can push their buttons.
Very responsive. So we appreciate
We can push their buttons if you don't.
any time for any idea of when you might expect to hear back from people, just so we can have an idea, because I don't want to bug you if I don't have to.
Chief, any idea in terms, you're talking about in terms of PEMA response or?
Probably won't hear from them until next week, but you mentioned the United Way and other organizations. If there's any way that we could, this idea.
Yeah, I haven't been, I'll connect with the United Way and then I'll have to report back to you on that issue.
Yeah.
And PEMA probably next week or so. We might.
I would think so, yeah. I would think so.
Those are my questions. Thank you. And thank you everybody again who's come out and helped. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Hi. I'm a Lower Makefield Township resident. I live at 24 Maple Vale. I've lived there a little over a year.
We
And,
need your name, please.
Oh, my name's Nancy McPeak. I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous.
Don't be.
I've been a nurse for 46 years. And I thought I was going to retire, but we moved here. I'm past retirement age by a few years now. So what we lost is really nothing in comparison to what my neighbors lost. But about $36,000, including my husband's truck that he needs for work and the damage to our house. And I feel kind of ignored, mostly because it's not a lot to a lot of people, but to me, right now, when I would really like to retire and feel like I deserve it, feels like a lot of money. And actually, when we pulled into the driveway that Saturday night, we were out to dinner with friends and we were in Haddonfield, New Jersey, and there was no rain in Haddonfield, New Jersey. And we met Glenn, our neighbor, in the driveway and saw what happened while we were gone. And I said to my husband, can we move? Like, that's really how I feel. But then this past Saturday night, we all got together as neighbors, and what a group I live with, like such a great community. And I just want you to know that because I know you've had a lot of pressure and people kind of pounding on you. I don't want to pound, but I do want to add one thing to the very bottom of your time project line, which is I'm worried about the selling of my house. What this flood has done to the value of my house, because we bought when real estate was through the roof. We paid an enormous amount of money for a house that was not worth that money. And we've put a lot of money into it since we moved in. And so can there be, as an end spot on your timeline, something like provide a certificate or some kind of a statement that the work was done and you're satisfied that this is not going to repeat itself? That's what I would like. Thank you.
Hello, Glenn Jeffries, 26 Maple Vale Drive. Just want to go back to phase one. The paving of the road. When is it going to be finished?
Isaac, you want?
The latest schedule we have for that is in the month of August. So it's supposed to be this month that it's able to be finished up once the one inlet is going to be lowered a bit, and then they'd be able to work to finish the paving.
Okay, so we were told July last month, which is past now, it's August. Or is this definite? It's written down?
Well, I understand the past part of it, but as far as the current schedule for the
This
contractor.
is written down somewhere? It says August, what date?
Well, with the contractor, their schedule is mid-August. So
Okay,
it's-
has the
I
contractor
would say
been
it's
paid
mid-August.
for the first phase?
This is a
First phase-
this is a separate right?
So, yeah, this is the road.
Has he been paid yet?
We have.
You've not paid him for phase one?
I don't.
For the work completed, they've been paid, yes.
They've been paid.
For the-
Were
the
they paid
work-
for the whole project or just
No,
up
the work,
to-
for the work completed.
Okay, are we going to go back and who approved who walked through and said, this is excellent job? It was done to perfection. We're
The work-
satisfied with it.
The work completed. or-
Yes. You walk through?
Our inspection is out there when they're doing paving along the way. So as with any capital project, there's not any payment made for work that's still left to be done as far as the whole project's concerned.
Mhm.
So when they complete portions, they're entitled to request payment for that completed work. And when they request that, our inspection team and our office verifies those quantities are completed. And that's what winds up on their payment request before the board.
Okay.
Nothing more. If they
So
say, hey, we
so
think
they
we're
were
gonna finish
satisfied
it
with what was done and how it was done.
for what they've been paid for so far.
Yes.
Correct. Yes.
And you were satisfied with the way they did it?
Or what they completed the
Yes.
payment thus far.
The crown in the road and
Correct.
the way the water flows now?
For the contract they had that they completed thus far and that they've been paid for,
Mhm.
we confirmed those quantities with them, correct?
So you paid for the material, not for actually the scope of how it was completed.
Well, their bid is, so the way the bid with the contractor works, it's the line items, right? So it's the quantity and their manpower, I guess, if you will, to do the work. So those items that they completed, we did verify that they were in fact complete. We confirmed that. And then it winds up on a payment certificate.
Okay, so you paid for work that's probably not really good. Because
No,
the
I
way
don't
the
believe
curb lines are in the neighborhood, one side of the street is 4 inches high, the other side is 2 inches high. 100 yards down the road, it's an inch high. So the water doesn't pool like you want it to go to those drains. It pools in our front yards and brings dirt and debris into the street. So can we go back and look at that and get new curbing done? Because it needs to be done properly.
We can definitely look at.
It's a shoddy job. You agree it's a shoddy
Replacing
job.
the curbing wasn't part of the contract that they had for the roadway paving.
But when you,
That's why there's not a new curb there as part of the work they
but
did.
do you agree that the curb should be higher? I mean, have you looked at the project? Have you come down and looked?
Yes.
And do you agree that the curbs are great? No good? Wasted money? We wasted our time doing this?
When we looked at it, we believe that the paving of the road, and at the time it was looked at for replacing curbing as well. The end result of that was that the paving would be done without replacing all the curbing in the neighborhood. So that's what took place.
You
with the
told us there was
contract.
going to be 6 inches on each side, right? That was the original plan?
I'd have to check the inches of the reveal. I don't know.
Does anybody know
I can follow
what
up.
the
with
reveal
that.
should have been?
I can follow up with what the inches of the existing curb is.
Because it's not even around the whole block.
I understand that.
You saw that.
Yes.
So it's not a really good job.
I think we're kind of crossing on the work that the contract had for the paving contractor and issues that you see with the curbing in the neighborhood.
So the curbing doesn't hold the water in where it's supposed to be to get to the drain, correct?
The curbing is meant to channelize the water along the sides of the road up until a certain point to try to get it to the drains or at least off the yards.
Okay, so
So
it's not
there-
doing that now.
Mhm.
And we paved the road.
Correct.
You approved it, you paid for it.
For the
So
paving.
now we should take up the road, correct? And do it properly?
Well, and I can go back to the full history of those decisions of why the curbing wasn't replaced. I know part of it was.
I
that
understand it was
it would block-
money.
If the curb was raised to an extent, say, sometimes it's like 8 inches in some
Mhm.
higher areas, that you can put curbing in. If that's raised too much, then you have to balance it with water coming down from a higher area through a yard down to the road.
Mhm.
You don't want to block it behind the curb in yards as well. So I know that was part of what was looked at. And like I said, at the end of the day, it was
money.
determined that the curbing wasn't going to be replaced as part of the road being resurfaced.
Okay, so but now it does need to be really replaced to channel the water where it needs to go to. We
Like I said, we
need to look at the
definitely
whole
follow
scale,
up
right?
on that, but that's not something that was missed in the contract as far as payments concerned. It
Mhm.
wasn't in the contract for them to replace curb.
Okay, but how come some houses did get replaced?
Are you referring to around inlets?
No, some driveways were redone and others were not.
I'd have to look at the locations that you're speaking to and be happy to
It's
follow up.
28 Maple Valley was redone and 30 Maple Valley driveway was redone in the front. But the rest of the block was not.
I'd be happy to follow up, looking at the plans with you
Yeah.
and clarify that for you.
All right. Second question. I only have 34 more to go. It's okay. No, I'm only kidding. So you talked about state grants and permits and all that stuff. Is this an open-ended permit for the stream to be cleaned out year-round, or is it just a one-time thing?
So Derek, you want to?
Yeah, GP3 permit is a one-time operation. So when sediment bars accumulate over time, a new GP3 permit needs to be sought from the state.
So is that going to be asked for every year?
We will.
Because it hasn't been done.
The goal of this township is to monitor that stream a lot more stringently than it has been in the past.
Okay.
Mr. Jeffries,
Yes.
the other thing that we can do, where we have them, is
Mhm.
every, Derek, correct me if I misspeak here, every bridge that we have, and not just the township, but the state too, because Taylorsville is right there. That's an issue.
Mhm.
So Taylorsville, there are bridges on Taylorsville. There's a permit called the GP10, which is the long-term operations and maintenance permit for the areas up and downstream of a bridge. And this doesn't have to be like the Scudder Falls Bridge. It can be any bridge or culvert that the state owns along Taylorsville.
Mhm.
They can at any time under that permit go, 50 feet up and downstream where they can be clean, including the cleaning of the culvert. So we also, in addition to the township cleaning that stream, we also have to make sure that we keep on PennDOT's case to clean out their portions as well, because there is a significant portion.
Who asked for that to be cleaned out once a year or looked at?
So it's part of,
We the community down below has to ask,
what
or
it's,
you guys will do that for us every year?
we can keep on their backsides to get on. It's supposed to be part of PennDOT District 6 plan, their operations and maintenance plan that they're supposed to execute all the time.
Has anybody looked through the culvert to see if it's full or empty?
Yeah, the Taylorsville culvert was looked at shortly after the storm. I went with PennDOT's maintenance division. There's not major blockages, but they have some minor sediment that they are scheduling to have removed.
Okay. My next question is Meadow. So we know a lot of water pools from Taylorsville behind the Taylorsville houses and the Meadow houses. There's township or what is it, more of a Pico pole lines back there. The water sits back there and it runs behind the houses and it comes out both ends of Mapleville. Is there a French drain that could be put in back there? What could be done between those houses? Has anyone looked at those houses?
Is that a Pico property that you're
It
referring
is,
to?
it is homes along Meadow, which back to the homes along Taylorsville.
You mentioned the Pico lines, that's what.
Well, because there's Pico pole lines back there. So has anyone ever looked back there to see the water pooling back there, sitting back there, and where it drains to?
I would say, let me give you my contact info and that way we can look at exactly the locations. From your descriptions, I just.
Okay,
don't know
I hope
exactly
there's
where-
anyone here from Meadow today?
That's fine. Specifically, I wasn't sure where he was referring to for ponding. Yeah. I understand.
Yeah, in this house, that's where the water comes in there and then it runs out both ends of the property.
My mic on.
Mr. Jeffries, I think all of these items, again, as Isaac's indicating, we're happy to talk to you about that and talk to the residents about. I think that's part of the more comprehensive sort of approach and solution that's necessary to address stormwater in the Mapleville neighborhood. So again, when we're talking about, a more sort of comprehensive integrated approach, using Mr. Luzecki's word, I think some of that is also looking at how to improve the system beyond which was previously contemplated in the neighborhood. So I think all of these things can be informed in that broader plan that we're speaking about.
Okay. And has anyone looked at or asked about raising the four houses at the end of the block or condemning them, which I think you came to?
Yeah, part of what I was asking Isaac is.
He never
that
really
was-
answered the question.
Yeah, so I don't think he's in a position or I don't even know if Derek would, be in that position yet, because I don't think you've done an analysis on whether or not that would mediate the other water issues within Mapleville. So, but I think that that's something that the board needs to take under consideration.
Yeah, because we have $50 million.
Sure.
And do we take, you don't have $50 million in a trust? That's what I heard last week.
No, that-
21 million in the trust.
Right, and how,
It's in a trust.
Protected trust.
and how much interest is that gaining each year?
If we're lucky, $1 million a year.
$1 million a year.
Yeah.
So you could buy 2 houses a year or a half a house, or what does that work? What's being done with that money? What's the plan?
Well, first of all, we can't touch it till 2025.
Okay,
That will be up to the board to decide how they spend the money. So, I mean, it's really a dead issue until 2025.
okay,
So, what I'm hearing is that the neighbors need to be informed of our progress on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So that they feel that they're not going to be put to the side. So is it possible that we can have a community Zoom meeting once a week? Where anybody who wants to get on
Yeah,
to get the latest and greatest from the township?
sure.
So that they're well informed without us going to the neighbors and neighbors coming to us.
Yeah.
We can set up a time, a schedule every week for an hour and we can answer questions about the progress that's going on. And then, of course, if you have individual questions, call the township. And if you're not getting any answer, then you call the board because the board makes policy. We don't usually get into the weeds, but we're happy to do so because this is very important to everyone.
Yeah, we're happy to establish a standing. I think that's a great idea.
I think that's what we
We
should
have
do.
standing meetings currently.
I don't
with
want
agencies
neighbors,
and-
I don't want neighbors to say or feeling or thinking that you're out in the wilderness by yourself. This is going to be a team effort. We need your help as much as you need our help. So for us to do the right thing, we need that constant reinforcement, and I know you do as well. So if you want, you can continue.
no, I have no more questions. That was
Good,
great.
thank you
very
very
much.
much. We hear what you're saying. And if there's anybody that has something additional to say about this that we haven't heard from already, I mean, I know everyone has their own story and we, between the last meeting and this meeting, we well understand it. And I don't want to stop you from giving us more information, but it's hard for us to act with the sunshine law the way it is immediately. We were lucky we could get phase 2 taken care of, but the larger issue that was brought up, the holistic issue, that's going to require not just our township, but other townships in the area, which we started working on within the last week or so. You need to hear the progress, and then hopefully we can formulate that plan together during the next few, on a weekly basis. So we'll establish a time. We will publish the time. Maybe we'll get it in the newspapers, we'll get it out as best we can so that every week there'll be a meeting until we're done. Okay? So unless there's something new that we need to hear about this subject, is there any other public comment about any other subject?
Richard Adams, 221 Taylorsville Road, a resident there for 72 years. What is the full name of the agency that you're awaiting permission from to proceed with the creek cleaning of the Lower Makefield Township owned land on both sides of Taylorsville Road?
The name of the agency that has jurisdiction? Oh, is that what you?
That you've applied for permission to
So
rid of all the trash and.
So it's the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. So Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection has jurisdiction over that.
Dave, that work's already been executed, correct? We have that permit and that's all been executed?
Correct.
What was the date that you applied to them?
So I just want to make sure the permit that was being referenced was the emergency repair permit related to the canal, not the stream across from Taylorsville on Taylorsville Road.
No, I'm referring to the one for the land, the up in the Prospect Farms area and the Lower Makefield Township land on the side of the road of Taylorsville down to the canal, the land that this township owns. Have you applied for a permit to clean out the jungle? And what date did you?
Derek, do you know what?
So the land that you're referring to on the east side of Taylorsville Road,
Yep.
if I'm saying that properly. The stream is actually, a very small portion is actually on township property. The large,
All of it is on township property from the,
it's actually on the right of way of Joint Toll Bridge Commission. It's actually in their right of way of the,
that's what not the deeds say in Doylestown.
I'd be happy to look at, I looked at this personally with Joint Toll Bridge Commission. It's actually
You
on
want
their
me
right
to
of.
read you the tax map plot number? It's on the internet. It's everywhere. And you people are denying that you own this land.
I'm not denying we own the land. We rightfully own that land. I'm just telling you the way the stream does meander, it does meander into the right of way of Joint Toll Bridge Commission.
Where their embankment is coming down, yeah, but all the way over to Mapleville, all the way down to the canal, and all the way to Taylorsville Road, you people own 14.4 acres.
Yes, we do.
Okay. And it includes the creek.
Yeah, there's been no permit applied for that area.
Oh, well, that's just lovely. We're gonna have the storms come up from the Caribbean later this year, and you people that hasn't been cleaned out in 72 years. I've been here since December the 10th, 1949. I used to trap muskrats in that creek, and nobody has ever cleaned that out.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
if you want to direct your unhappiness, please not with the staff. You can speak to us that way if you like.
Well, when you deny things and you know, that are in writing, I'll get the doors down. I'll bring you your tax map. Okay, let's talk about Prospect Farms.
Sir,
That's owned.
sir, please talk to us.
Okay.
He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to, but we do. Okay, we're not gonna, we're,
You people between the,
thank you.
is
sir.
it Forio is the name of the estate there that's fenced in? Is that the man's name? F-I-O?
Fiore, I think is who you're talking at,
Peoria?
140 Dolington?
Yeah.
Yes, I know who you're talking.
From there down to the homes on Taylorsville Road, including the creek, including the embankment going up to Island Drive or the development up there. You people own 7.78 acres. What are you going to do about cleaning out that jungle?
So if I may, one of the things that I raised last meeting was, in addition to owning that land, because I'm familiar with that land, the basins that serve Prospect Farm, the township has taken ownership over.
Yes.
Eric, correct me if I'm
That's
mistaken.
correct. Yes.
So one, they're always inspecting the basins first, the stream. Now, this is a multifaceted approach here. There is additional land in there that I think, as we go forward with that long-term plan that we were talking about before, when we look at the full watershed approach, we need to look at that specific area. I agree wholeheartedly with you on this. We need to look at that specific area as a potential area to increase our stormwater management, to put in check dams, whatever we can do, because there's available land there that we might be able to do something to have a positive effect relative to Mapleville, because that's the closest area. Now, if you can, I would continue that personally, I would continue that all the way up the stream till you get to Woodside and Dolington and see what we can do the whole stretch across all 364 acres of the watershed.
Yeah. On the opposite side of that estate. Also, that needs.
Well, inclusive of that estate, because they may be doing, we need to make sure that it's still a state, a waters of the Commonwealth. It's a state, it's a stream that is technically in the jurisdiction of the Commonwealth. So we need to make sure that even private landowners that have the stream going through their land are following necessary, state regulations, federal regulations, township regulations, where there may be some. And it's not always the township that can enforce those things, but we can also ultimately work with and it's not always enforcements. Ultimately, sometimes it's educating landowners on how best to manage their properties to see what we can do to help them, rather than just being the stick all the time. So you're absolutely, I'm getting off on a tangent, but I absolutely agree with you.
The basins there on what was the DeLuca,
Yeah.
they need to be re-studied and see if they, being there's area there, they can be whatever, lowered, lengthened, whatever that they can. I went back there after the nastiness that happened on Saturday, and I didn't see mud in those basins, and I was very surprised that I didn't see the mud. Now, I admit I didn't do a good job of traipsing around back in there, but
You probably didn't see mud.
anything.
Well, they did
Those
fill up.
basins were full. I
Yeah,
actually had
we
multiple
drove those.
residential complaints from residents whose backyard is that basin, and he was scared that he was gonna get flooded. So they did, and as a basin, rightfully so, within. Actually, yes, there is pictures from, I can be glad to forward them to you. But yes, the one basin was full near emergency spillway capacity and probably drained within 24 hours per design.
Yeah. But I would want to say, right, I think this board, I think we said it 2 weeks ago, and I think you've heard it again tonight. This board agrees that we need to take a more comprehensive look at everything we can look at within the township, marshal the cooperation of the different agencies, whether they be state, county, or fed, and reach out to the bordering townships, because while I love the idea of the takeover of the Chamonix Creek, I don't think we can do that, but that doesn't mean we can't work with them and prod them to help be partners in this, because whatever you want to call it, climate change or just bad weather, right, we have to figure out how to deal with this.
I brought a right to know paperwork here today. I want to know what the elevation is at the Taylorsville Road Bridge and what the elevation is of the canal that the stream flows into. How much drop is there?
You said you dropped that off today, sir?
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, to the extent that we have,
No, you got 5 days.
what's that?
You got 5 days. I don't.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, to the extent that we have a document that's responsive to your request, we'll absolutely get that to you.
That needs to be cleaned out back there. There's concrete footages back there when it was a duck farm. That jungle needs to be cleaned out.
Yeah, I think all the issues, as Supervisor Blundy or Vice Chair Blundy noted, all the issues you're addressing are part of that sort of comprehensive look that I think has been committed to and articulated this evening.
Okay. All right. Can the short distance of the stream between Highland Drive Bridge and the Taylorsville Road Bridge be cleaned out soon? There is small trees right as the water wants to go into and under the Taylorsville Road Bridge. Anybody?
Derek, did you look at
That
that
is
stretch?
the area that PennDOT District 6-1 maintenance is going to take care of. Yes, I met with those guys and they're getting that on their screw. They're scheduled for their crew. Their immediate for the last 2 weeks was opening Taylorsville Road. That was their main goal, was opening Taylorsville Road.
Up.
Yes, they were dealing with major road washouts. So then their next goal is start maintaining that bridge right there. It needs minor sediment that you're referring to, that bramble that's in that bank right there.
They have agreed to do that.
Yes.
Thank you. And you volunteered, I believe, that someone has stood in the stream and looked under the bridge to be sure that.
I was there with PennDOT's main chief maintenance engineer, and he looked in there with their drainage engineer also. So they're aware of what they need to touch with that stuff, and they're scheduling their crews for that.
Thank you. Is a total survey of the Highland, Upton, Hilltop, and Prospect Farms developments going to be studied of the water runoff, a perk test, whatever would be the normal thing? Because someone told me, and I don't know whether it's true, that the Highland Drive area, Upton and Hilltop, that you don't have information as to a perk test, the water runoff, all the standard things that are normally required, because it was done back in 64 or 5. And many people have put in patios, got variances, doubled the width of their driveways. Am I correct? And is it prudent that should be done so that we don't end up with this project have you be done over a later date.
You're referring to basins? Are you referring to basins up in that area or which?
I don't know
what-
there are any bases. That was.
I think he's just saying the general lack of infrastructure in that area. So again, and when we're looking at retrofitting existing developed areas, yeah, that would be an area that we would look at and something we would look at, yes.
Get an up-to-date quality study by an outside outfit.
Yeah.
See how much water can run off of that area and end up down in the creek at where Highland Drive meets Taylorsville Road, so that we can plan accordingly as to what it is that you're going to be doing down there with the little bridge.
Right. So that's again, part of the upstream conditions that have been referenced generally. And that would be part of looking at things on a watershed basis or level as opposed to just looking at Mapleville as a neighborhood again, looking at the entire drainage basin. So yes.
That area and the Prospect Farms development is the cause of their terrible problem. It's not that they're the community that created that water. It came from the other side of the street, Taylorsville Road.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we're dealing with historic development issues and approaches to stormwater or the lack of approach to stormwater in areas that developed when philosophies relative to stormwater were different than what today's standards are for stormwater.
Rules were different. It's
Correct.
in
Right.
1960s now.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Have you gone out for bids to whatever outside outfit would do this study for you?
No, so we're still trying to define a scope. Again, as I mentioned, I have started to,
2 weeks to define the scope.
well, again, we've been dealing with the immediate issues as it relates to stabilizing the condition in the Mapleville neighborhood. We've been trying to leverage, resources from all of these agencies, all these levels of government. Again, it is something that's in the works.
It's very obvious the impervious surface for Island Drive and Upton and so on is larger than it was when those houses were built.
Right. So again, when I say define scope, really looking for solutions to address these upstream conditions.
And you would include the Oreo estate as well, and to the west where the stream comes
Yeah.
into the Foreo property.
Again, we're going to approach this as holistically as possible. So any opportunity there is to address the issue, we're going to evaluate potential solutions.
Okay, does Lower Makefield Township have the calculations of the Delaware River Joint Toll Bridge Commission study of the runoff of their basin into the stream just before it goes underneath Taylorsville Road?
Derek, you want to talk about the interaction with the?
Yes, I
Joint
do
Toll
not
Bridge
have
Commission.
those calculations per se. Their basin that you're referring to, their large basin is actually by design an infiltration basin. So it is not a direct,
Your head turned, I didn't.
I'm sorry. The basin that you're referring to is actually designed as an infiltration basin. So the only time it spills into the creek or in the stream that you're referring to is at a normal flood event, which it did not at that event.
It's a 24-inch pipe.
It is a 24-inch pipe as an emergency overflow of that basin. Yeah.
Right. So
Claiming that nothing came out of that monstrous thing of theirs into.
It actually did not.
and they have videotaped
They
it, right?
actually, they were watching all the storm event on their multiple security cameras. Yes, they did not.
I didn't see any security camera there at the base of the bridge. I stand there at the railing and look down.
It's actually on your right-hand side where the on-ramp is to go to Jersey. They have a camera right there.
Have you seen the results of that?
I actually did. Yeah, I actually saw the other side of the bridge that was flooding out. Yes, they did. They share that with me when I met with their chief engineer, assistant chief engineer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Mr. Chair, can I recommend maybe as part of the emergency for the additional 7 days that we direct manager and staff to maybe take a look at parcel 20030056001, which is AKA Taylorsville Road, and 200201130-026, which is AKA Prospect Farm Drive, for any emergency clean out of those creek areas.
For the consensus of the board? Yeah, I just said.
Just a direct,
So done.
thank you.
Mr. Adams, thank you. Yes, all public comment, any subject you want.
As long as it's not on the agenda. If it's an agenda item, then you have to wait for the agenda portion. Uh-oh, who's fast? Who's got to get there? Uh-oh.
My name's Tom Meyer. I live on Twig Lane in Lower Makefield here. In deference to the tragic events of July 15th, I did not make any comments in the July 19th meeting. But that said, I previously approached this board about the Verizon appeal to construct a 150-foot cell tower in a residential area. At that time, I referenced a Roman senator from several thousand years ago who concluded all of his public comments discussing a subject that was very near and dear to his heart. So again, I like to be considered a 21st century Cato the Elder when I say that building a 150-foot cell tower in a residential area is a bad idea. But in addition to that statement, I really beseech this board to do everything in its power to oppose the construction of a 150-foot cell tower in a residential area. This is a goal by a company with $135 billion a year in annual revenues, and I don't think they absolutely reflect the best interests of the residents of Lower Makefield. I'm asking this board to support the residents of Lower Makefield on that every way possible. Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Berry, Lower Makefield Township resident. First time I'm speaking for you. 229 Taylorsville Road. You know, my heart goes out. This is only my second meeting I've been to. It's very interesting, but I'll be very brief. I'm just curious about these phases. So the stream behind us obviously, you know, did stuff that I never imagined it would do. We've been there 21 years, and I live next to the Skinners, and we've watched these events happen. But briefly, I just want to get a clarification. Phase one was the Maplevale project. Phase two is now the cleaning, and I thank you all for what you've done in the back of my house and Nancy Griffith and the Skinners. I mean, you've cleaned it out. Amazing. I hope it's the solution to this problem so these folks down below don't get paddywhacked again, but I appreciate the urgency to get it done. And it looks like they've kind of patched, it's a whole new look back there, but these folks have a really whole new look. And I do really appreciate what you guys done. I'm sitting here listening, and it's a lot on you folks, but my issue is very small, but I've dealt with it for years. And, you know, living on Taylorsville, I guess PennDOT they're the masters of that road in terms of getting a draining issue that we have, you know, and we have a draining issue that in the winter, it just turns into an ice gap and try to back out of there, you know, we've never had an accident, but it's dangerous and it gets deep and the water just doesn't drain. And I'm just wondering if I want to kind of be on the record for the first time that the consideration of this, and I'm not going to speak for Scott, but I noticed that they did sort of repair his driveway enough to get to get some cars in there, and there's a drainage ditch in there. It looks like it's unfinished. So I guess is that phase two project completed? It's not completed because the bridge is or PennDOT's gonna come in and do some more, or?
As Derek just mentioned, he was in contact with PennDOT and the chief engineer from PennDOT, and they did look at that, and they are making recommendations, and Derek's actually making recommendations and what he thinks needs to be done with that bridge.
Oh, just to kind of clarify, the patch on the Skinner's house with the drain underneath, which would be wonderful. We could somehow get that drain to just drain right down to the.
So that was conversations that we've had with PennDOT higher up. Their maintenance division in terms of what maintains drainage and swales, more or less. There's nothing in terms of a short-term maintenance that can be done just from the way the grades are along Taylorsville Road. Yeah. And water almost needs to go uphill to get to the past the Skinner's property. You know, it's almost the grade actually goes up, believe it or not. It's an optical illusion. So in terms of PennDOT, they're looking at more of a capital. It's a long-term capital project that would have to be done along Taylorsville Road, inlets, curb line, things like that. Unfortunately, there's nothing short-term to stop the driveway drainage right now, the issues there. The Skinner's property, they were nice, and I believe it's the Skinner's property. They were nice enough to allow us to access the stream through the property, and we destroyed that pipe. So we replaced that pipe in kind and paved that because that was destroyed through the
And
construction
that
access.
box that's next to it is a concrete box that's not completed, or that a drainage? I don't know what that thing, what is that there? Do you know what that is?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't, I'm,
It's a concrete box on the north side of the driveway that has just been built. It looks like it's not finished, but I'm just.
I know there's a hole there just because, again, grades along Taylorsville Road over years and 50 years of rebuilding state road, their driveway naturally stay low. The pipe is naturally lower than where it can drain to. So I believe the contractor just, the best of their ability, put the pipe back to the existing invert elevation, the bottom elevation, which is almost below surrounding grade. Believe it or not, but we wanted to put that in because we damaged it and it's there. So if PennDOT does do something in the future, they can get that to drain. We wanted to at least put that back there for them.
I just wanted to get it on the public record, but thank you all for what you've done. I mean,
Thanks for your comments. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, related to that, is that or maybe to Mr. Chulo over here, that's something where we could try and formally petition PennDOT to take action on Taylorsville and do.
I mean, we've commenced those conversations with them as Derek has.
I mean, I know you all have.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking
If
about
we
as a
could get
board?
Formal action by the board.
You can actually direct us if you want to, draft a resolution for that purpose, and we can do that. I mean, that's certainly.
I think it's a significant
I
part.
mean, if you want me to do it for the next meeting, I realize you want the sense of that tonight, but there may be, may get more information by the next meeting. We could prepare a resolution. Maybe not just Taylorsville either, when you come to think of it. There may be other areas that under PennDOT jurisdiction, you may want to consider for that as well.
We have
Just-
consensus on it, so
So,
whatever it takes.
okay.
I mean, I don't know, the resolution sounds to me like when the Wizard of Oz, right? A letter, whatever, if us calling and if us talking isn't enough, if they need written documentation on letterhead, then let's get that
Okay.
going.
And that's part of coordination that's been going on with both the representative and the senator's office has been related to that. They were helpful in getting, the PennDOT maintenance folks and sort of government relations folks involved. And so that has been elevated. There was that site visit, see what opportunities existed on the maintenance side. And then they came to the conclusion that it was a broader, larger capital project that they'll have to plan and
At
look
least
at.
we're having
So-
everybody talking again. Yes, sir.
I'm Scott Stebbins.
Closer to the microphone, please.
I'm Scott Stebbins. I'm representing Pam Skinner. She's 233 Taylorsville Road. Derek's been pretty intimate in that neighborhood. But anyway, Jeffrey lives 2 doors up, and his driveway has basically been underwater for 20 some years. And it's also been a school bus stop. Pennsbury didn't really seem too concerned about it, but it's either an ice skating pond in the winter or floods. So I think that's really his concern. Plus he gets a lot of water into his garage. But the water does not work there. We know that. And Eric's probably more up to speed on that for you. But my mother-in-law does want me to state that she appreciates all of your efforts and everything that you've done and the timeliness and, the considerations. So in that note, she's been there 50 or 60 years. I guess a couple things you talked about a Zoom meeting. The problem I had is that the contractor that was in there tore out my parking lot area where I park my cars and trailer, and they tore out the cable. So I don't know if I'll have cable for that Zoom meeting, but we're working on that.
Your cell phone will work.
Yeah, well, but I'm not the one that wants to go to the
Okay,
Zoom
I
meeting.
understand.
She's at home. But anyway, I think she was a little baffled as to maybe the ownership of some of the property. I think the contractor felt that it was the township's property and took on some liberties that I guess she felt they didn't communicate with her as to what was to be taken or left or whatever. So I know that was an issue she was a little worried about. The other thing was they also asked her if she had gas, natural gas and whatnot. I don't know if they ever had time to call for a PA1 call. And I know that that's a very serious.
They actually did, just so you're aware. And the only reason they asked that is because Pico Gas actually mismarked something else that we noticed in the field. So I think they just wanted to verify to the best of their abilities that they checked. Because like you said, Comcast did not mark her cable line after we called it in. So that's why they just wanted to confirm.
Okay, well, there were some of her concerns, but wanted me to make sure that you are aware that she appreciated your efforts.
And I'll be glad to follow up to see what those other concerns are. No, beautiful. Yeah, I did try to reach out to you. I think it went right to voicemail, left you a voicemail.
In the funding issues, I've reached out to Mike Kirk about, I guess he was tallying the quotes and whatnot. And I guess that's where I know Derek's concern was the structural integrity of the bridge that we have that goes up to the house. And I'm trying to find a structural engineer that will give me a report or even come out. And it's kind of hard for me to get a price. And then if we have to construct it or whatever. So I don't know if that's something that Mike needs to hear from me or whatever. It's been an issue with trying to, I don't have a number is what I'm saying to say it's going to be 50 or 100,000 or whatever, but
Got it.
I don't want it to be overlooked that it's not included in the number. So.
Right, yeah, because obviously any more information is better as we're reporting it to Pima. So yes, if we can,
Well, is there a deadline for Mike to give you that?
Chief, do you have any idea?
There isn't an exact deadline, but it should be as soon as possible. Yeah, we don't want to miss that.
Well, I have one for driveway, blacktop, but I'm trying to work on the structural engineer and the plan for that moving forward.
How would that work, Derek? Get a structural engineer out there, take a look.
With his private bridge.
Private bridge.
Private bridge. It would be up to the homeowner since it's privately owned. To just have I assume they're just looking to have the assessment done and potential, if it needs to be replaced, is what they're trying to look at, and potential cost to evaluate cost.
Right. Okay.
You have someone.
I'll talk to Mike Kirk that we could almost have an estimated value of what that would be. Just assuming worst case.
He has a
scenario.
name.
We could.
I
That's fine. Yeah, we could. Yes.
I'm
I'll have Mike reach out. We'll reach out to you.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know if Pima has any guidance or county EMA has any guidance in terms of just general values they've assigned to structures. I don't know, but we can maybe look at that. It's obviously not going to evaluate the condition of your structure, but for a cost standpoint, just.
You could send me pictures of that and
Yeah,
I could send it to
We can
Pima.
send it in the Pima.
Send it in. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we have Isaac take a look, send it in to Pima and we can get a ballpark.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would recommend.
On that, Scott, I just want to make sure, since it's a bridge, basically a bridge replacement, right? What you might be looking at, I'm
Well,
jumping the gun, maybe.
Also compromised.
I got you.
Cleaning up in there. They got hit.
Yeah.
And then don't know what's left.
I got you. So my one concern is, obviously that's a concern, but in terms of costing, if there has to be some sort of H&H analysis done because it is over that stream, that we make sure that's included in the estimate, because that adds up too.
Yeah.
As long as they cover that.
Yes. No, good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we would just remind everybody, not just the people here and not just the people in Mapleville, but anybody in Lower Makefield who's been impacted, who had damage to their property, et cetera, please let us know, because that will help us help the residents who are here. There is a threshold. It's important that we show to the different agencies how impacted property owners have been. And we can only do that when people tell us, what damage they've sustained. So please, everybody. An email, like once you have it, you can email admin@lmt.
Yeah, we've been collecting it via email. Again, if you don't have access to an email, feel free to give us a call. And then folks have also been reporting through the citizen portal, which is called OpenGov, which there's a link on our website. So we've been using that as the primary basis to collect that information. And thank you for mentioning that. I was going to mention that as part of my report is, again, we're dependent on that information in order to be helpful to you and meet those thresholds. So the more information, the better.
Well, you have to remember, and you can go from there. Okay, any other public comment before we close? Mr. Adams, one bite at the apple. Okay, okay, go ahead. I thought someone was coming forward. Come on.
That temporary speed limit sign that flashes is when you're over the speed limit. Could we have that on Taylorsville Road between the Borough Line and the bridge on some sort of a schedule, maybe 2 days, a month on the northbound side, or 2 days or 3 days on the other side? Because the people coming off of interstate, they're all over the speed limit when they're on the interstate, and they come down Taylorsville Road. And we do have children that cross the street because they play their yards. And in the other direction, because everybody's just bitter at doing 25 on North Main Street, as soon as they clear North Main Street, the pedal goes down. It's ridiculous what goes on out there. And we've never had that sign, Taylorsville Road.
Sure, I'll get that up there for you.
Yeah. And set it up on a schedule that this month, 2 or 3 days, one side, the other side. Do you have more than one of those signs?
We actually have 2 of them.
Okay. Do those signs record time, and when it does flash that the person's over the speed limit, that your office gets an idea of how much over the
No,
speed?
they're just speed indicators for the traffic, that's all.
Are there
There
more
are
up to
other
date?
signs that do
available?
record, yes,
Yeah.
but these particular signs that we have are not.
Would you recommend it to the board that we buy whatever you feel is
Happy
necessary?
to recommend that to the board.
It would give you an idea of areas wherever you put it, that your officers need to be more attentive to that particular stretch of road. I mean, people getting off the interstate on Yardley Newtown Road, it's cornfields on each side. No kids are running out of there and they're over the speed limit. We're not going to hit a child. And of course, as you made aware, 4 years ago, or well, it's more than that, we did have a child hit
Yes, we
there
did.
in that stretch.
Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Adams, we could also request perhaps PennDOT to do that as well. Again, with Taylorsville Road being a state road. So in addition to what you're recommending us to do, we can also make a request for PennDOT to do a speed study on that segment of road as well.
Okay, but they don't have any state police on the interstate anymore since the pandemic. They're not out there.
Yeah, I understood.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to, is there any online public comment?
Yes, we have a couple people online. I can bring our first caller in now.
Thank you.
Tim is in the room with us now.
Hello. State your full name, and if you're a Lower Makefield resident, please. Guess we lost that person. Try to get him back, or if we have number 2.
Let me see if we can get her back, but I'll bring the second person in while we're working on that.
Okay.
Tim is in the room with us now. Okay, Lisa's in the room with us now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please give your full name and whether you're a Lower Makefield resident or not.
I am a Lower Makefield resident. My name is Lisa Nason. It's wonderful to be with you tonight. I'm a member of the Mapleville community. I've been listening to my brilliant neighbors talk this evening, and I'm thinking a lot about big things and little things. I'm thinking a lot about what our neighborhood has gone through. So I would ask all of you, since I can't be in the room with you respectfully, do you feel that you've done your absolute best job to examine all of the grates and drains in our immediate neighborhood to make sure that they are clear and they are clean and they're ready for the next rain? If anyone would answer, I would appreciate it. Am I being listened to?
Yeah.
Eric, can you give
In terms of Mapleville, your neighborhood on Mapleville Drive has 4 inlets. A pair of 2 and a pair of 2. Obviously, the 2 are part of the compromise pipe, and the other two are part of the 1955 30, I believe it's 36-inch pipe. Those inlets have been, the grates have been cleaned. The pipe has not necessarily been inspected since the storm event, but the inlets have been checked and cleaned along with the other ones on the compromised pipe.
Well, would you feel that the grates and the pipes have been cleaned on Taylorsville Road? Have those been inspected thoroughly? It's a yes or no.
There's 3 inlets on Taylorsville Road, I would say the north leg of Mapleville Drive. One of them had large sediment accumulation. And again, when I met with PennDOT, because it is their responsibility, they may have already been out. If not, they are coming out within the next few days to clean the sediment out of that one drain inlet.
You're referring to the one between 236 and 240 Taylorsville Road, which I spoke with District 6 today, PennDOT, and they said they're not aware of that. It's very discouraging, as I met with my neighbors last evening, and they are brilliant. You've heard from them. And they're talking about their hardship and their pain. And we take a little a look-see at a drain that is filled to capacity. As the water came down the hill and inundated my home, I was confused as to why it was coming from one side and then bouncing back from the other. I would ask, if PennDOT is responsible for part of this, then PennDOT does not wait for 3 weeks to come down and deal with the issue. It is filled, Dan. I'm assuming that is you. I can't see you on the phone. I'm working. It is filled to capacity. And for this neighborhood to take here's a look and see, a show and tell moment last evening as we assembled and we're talking about what are we doing? How are we going to live through this? And we take a look at a drain where the dirt is to the grate. And we're hearing from all of you about the big picture, this, that, and the other. And we look on the very street where the flooding started. There is no doubt that God brought a lot of raindrops into that neighborhood. We all acknowledge that. But that was near where the flooding was from. It came down the hill. I have the videotape that my neighbors have. They have the timestamp of how quickly it came down, how ferociously it came down, how it came down and it doubled back because grates were not cleaned, pipes were not cleaned. If it's the responsibility of PennDOT to clean those pipes and grates, it ultimately becomes the responsibility of this paid board of commissioners. We are not paid, you are paid. This happened 2 years ago. It looks as if no one has looked at that in 2 years. It is astonishing to me as we think about the hurt of this community, that these small things that are so important to these people are overlooked or are pushed aside. And the feeling that we had last night of discouragement from something that would be so simple had you just looked down when you were there and said, this is a major problem. And to the gentleman's point earlier about the 14.4 acres, the jungle, no one has cleaned it. I know it because it's adjacent to my land. I'm there, I'm on it. I know it's dumped on by the township. I've seen it being dumped on, things dumped on that land. It is just disheartening 2.5 weeks after the fact to see a drain and a grate that is filled to capacity, and my neighbors have to see it. Clean it out. Do your job. We're being patient. We're emotional because we're humans. We're in our homes. We bought them because we love our neighbors and we love our neighborhood. I just wish all of you would come down tomorrow morning and take a peek right inside of a grate where it all happened and look at what we're looking at. And you will understand the emotion of the people in the room. Because if you can't be thorough in the little things, you're not going to be thorough in the big things. This is all a lot of political and legal jargon. And we are just people who want to live simple, happy, peaceful, quiet lives. That is my comment. I needed to get it on the record as I have recorded and forwarded the picture to media. So I thank you for your time. Good night.
Is there any other online?
Yes, I'll bring Kim back in the room now. And Kim is back in the room with us.
Kim, give your full name. If you're a Lower Makefield resident, make your comment.
My name's Kim Mummy. I live at 36 Maplevale Drive. I am a Lower Makefield resident. I grew up and have family members at the top of Highland. And I appreciate everybody on the board and the township workers that have been helping us, especially Dan Greenier. He's been very involved with our neighborhood and really has done a good job. I have a couple questions. The one, I'll kind of tag off of Lisa here. So when I was probably 20, you put the grate across the whole way at the bottom of Highland, and there was a family reunion of a couple of the neighbors, and there were some lifelong residents of the top of Highland that said that that was done to prevent what's happened in Maplevale. So I'm just kind of wondering why that was closed up to the degree it is, because now there's just 2 small grates and the rest is just concrete that just then flows right to our neighborhood. So if somebody could maybe look into that for us. Another question I have is the work that's been done on the stream is great on Lower Hilltop, on Edgemere, Taylorsville. My concern there is when you get to the north side underneath the bridge of Highland, about 10 feet, it's really wide, and then it bottlenecks. And I can just see if we get another storm, that water is going to flow like anything, and then it's going to get there, and it's not going to be able to go uphill to Highland, so it's going to come right down into Maplevale. So I just want to make sure that you guys have looked into that. And the last thing is to tag off of my neighbor Glenn's comment. It is a little confusing because being that I telecommute, I've talked to many of the different people and crews and contractors that were there. We were told that there were going to be grates put in on Taylorsville that then were going to attach to a new drain pipe that was going to go under Maplevale or in the street of Maplevale down around. And then when they came to pave, and the other thing was that they were going to take our street and go down to, I'm definitely not a builder or anything like that, but they were going to take the street the whole way down so that then the curbs would be more exposed. So I'm just confused because we would be told things would be done, and the next thing you know, they were coming to pave our streets, and they didn't pave up into our driveways. Like Glenn was saying, that the curbs, I get more, I have never had water up as far in my driveway as I did with this last storm. So I know I threw a lot out there at once, but if you guys have any questions or answers to those questions.
Unfortunately, we don't have answers to the questions because we're still all wondering what happened. And we have our staff to figure that out and answer to us as well as you. So.
Okay.
Ask a clarifying question, because I won't want to say it's rude. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to finish this up. And Mr. Jeffers, you raised a good point. You know, the original plan was the curbs would be redone, or there'd be enough curbs to channel the water.
Right.
But the issue was, according to the engineer at the time, and you know, it's on the record, I'm just repeating what I heard or what I understand, is that the crown of the road was changed so that there'd be more volume. There was, I think, less of a peak, so that we didn't need to lower the, that was a decision that was made in the field. I can't answer whether that was more effective, as effective, or less effective. We're gonna get that answer to you, and during one of those weekly Zoom meetings, you'll get that answer.
Because now we actually get a lot more since, and I did talk to that contractor about that little grade. He showed it to me.
I'm only giving you what I know.
Okay.
I believe me, I trust what you say, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going, if there's something that needs to be fixed, it will be fixed. I
appreciate that.
And I don't think anybody on the board is going to disagree with what I just said. Okay, so let's put that, please put that to rest. And we're going to get to the answers. You're going to be part of the solution. You live there. So I'm going to cut this public comment off at this point because I think we have the information. We're going to set up the weekly meetings. You have I'm going to say the web address one more time, lmt.org. Once you get to the front page, you're going to be directed to where you have to go. You're going to, if we have your email addresses, you'll be notified via email. If we don't have your email addresses, register so that you're a participant in lmt.org so we can send you the information. You're asking me how you're going to be involved? This is the best way to do it. You know our phone numbers, just call. So thank you for showing us your concerns. You're always welcome back at all our meetings to continue the conversation, because this is a conversation. And we listen, we hear, and we will hopefully deliver to your satisfaction. So I'm going to cut off public comment at this point because we do have some business to achieve today. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we will deal with it. You're welcome for the rest of the meeting, but I know you have, we all have our bedtimes. Okay, so I'm going to item 5, consider approval of minutes for July 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and seconded. Motion made by Supervisor McCartney, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval, signify by saying aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
5-0 approved. Number 6, Mr. Kessler, engineers report.
Good evening. For tonight, we didn't have anything specifically for tonight to update our capital projects and land developments in progress, we're coordinating with staff for status and working with different contractors. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Nothing specifically on tonight's agenda.
Couple of quick ones, kind of sticking with the theme so far.
Sure.
The MS4, under MS4, it says you're issuing a report for outfall repairs needed. When will we be getting that report? Because it doesn't play into what we've been talking about. And are there any highlights there where you're seeing major issues?
Yes, that one, the report itself is being finalized to provide not only to public works staff, but to the township and the board. That's for the inspections done as part of the annual program, looking at any dry weather flow, any repairs as far as the structural integrity of those outfalls. So a few of them were kind of minor maintenance type of locations, whether it's overgrowth or some to that effect. And then there's a few that, were noted that could have some repair attention. So we anticipate having that ready to provide within, I would say, the next week or two here for sure.
Related, we submitted a grant application for the Hidden Oaks basin retrofit back in mid-end of June. Any response yet on that you're aware of?
Not today.
No response. No.
Talk about that. That's good for me. Thank you.
Any other comments to the engineer? Item 7, item A has been addressed, so we can go right to item B, sir.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the board. Just wanted to note for the benefit of the public that the application submitted by Celco doing business as Verizon for the proposed tower, that case has been continued. There's been an extension granted until October the 1st. So as the board is aware, as part of its review as to whether it was going to participate in whatever fashion in the hearing process, the board engaged Cohen Law Group as special counsel to provide legal analysis and guidance to the Board of Supervisors. I did get their legal memorandum just at the beginning of this week. I'm trying to schedule a call with them just to review it, but I would expect that that would be provided to you by your next meeting. So I just wanted to make note of that. I don't know if you wanted me to just continue, or does anyone have any questions on the Celco matter at this point? No.
MC?
Okay. So item C is a follow-up from a prior discussion that was had with members of the Environmental Advisory Commission or Council regarding fall 2023 tree planting. As the board is aware, there are special purpose monies that are collected that must specifically be used for tree replacement. So this isn't general revenue that's being used for this work. This is work that, these are funds that are specifically intended for tree replacement work where there's tree disturbance associated with development activities. There were a couple sites that the EAC had outlined. That information is in your packet. It was Keola Field, Memorial Park East, and Fred Allen Fields. So we're just following up on the request and recommendation from the EAC to release a bid document to have contractors price out tree planting for fall 2023. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. At this point, I'm happy to address those if there are.
Fair motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to authorize bid for fall 2023 tree planting. Any comments by the board?
Briefly, I just want to thank the EAC for all the work that they've done on this. I know Mr. Dresser's here if anyone has any questions. But I think it's a very organized plan that has come to fruition after working with township staff, and I think it can be successfully implemented.
Any other comments by the board?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm disappointed, right? Because I love the work that you guys did to coordinate, volunteer, and build community in planting. So I appreciate that we can't always do everything as volunteers, but this is, I think, the second year in a row that we're not able to do anything as a volunteer, and I really hope you guys can get back to that. I still meet people who tell me how meaningful that was to them to be able to work alongside you guys and to see their trees growing, because that's how some of the families think of them. It's like, oh, we planted that tree. So I hope we see that again. And then my second piece, and it may not be applicable per se, because I see where we're planting and I agree that it's needed. But when we talk about the comprehensive plan that we want to look at for stormwater management, yeah, I'm sure that trees are going to be part of it. And I don't want to not have money to plant trees where we needed to help with runoff or whatever expressions I'm supposed to use. Because that's where we need to invest right now. Right? We really need to make sure we're doing and marshaling all of our resources to address these situations in a long-term holistic way. Yay, trees.
And to piggyback off that, and I've reiterated this before, is maybe looking at the opportunity at Patterson Farm for saplings and, as a small nursery in order to mitigate the cost of buying full-size trees.
Yep, absolutely. And as part of the the plan that was contemplated or authorized to request proposals for, we'll make sure that those opportunities are both as it relates to helping with the management of stormwater, as well as the suggestion there is contemplated.
Any other comment by the board? Any public comment?
Hello, my name is Alan Dresser and I live at 1907 Lindbrook Drive. And I'm a member of the Environmental Advisory Council, and we're all very happy that you're proceeding with this planting this fall. We've been looking forward to it. We did have one concern. There was an initial estimate, there's 162 trees, and you were thinking it's going to cost $125,000. And that works out to about $800 a tree. And that is far above any amount the township has spent on trees like Mirror Lake Road. Those trees were with the trees, deer protection, and the gator water bags were $489 per tree. So, and you said it was prevailing wage was a problem, right?
So in part, yes. I mean, given the magnitude of the scope of work, it is kicking us over the threshold for prevailing wage. Again, that was quoted for informational purposes to provide some context.
Come to, but
hopefully it won't.
We could break it up. I mean, Memorial Park could be its own project. It's all
by itself and therefore avoid the prevailing wage?
You can't break projects up. If this is the contemplated project and Mr. Truelove can speak to it, but you can't.
People have tried to do that in the past, not for tree projects, but in construction projects where they would try to do it so it would avoid the prevailing wage, and that's contractors would immediately challenge that, and they would accuse the
Well-
township of doing exactly what it would be trying to do.
It'd be tough to do with Keola and Fred Allen right next to each other, but Memorial Park seems.
Yeah, we're all.
Volunteers, volunteers, volunteers.
Plus the fact that, as our airport people know, segmentation is looked frowned upon. So no, we can't do that.
Okay.
But we appreciate
Trying to save some money. We have a little over 400,000 in the tree banks. And did we get many bids or proposals for the long-range tree planting plan yet?
No responses at this point. Again, those are due at the middle of the month.
Middle
So
of the month.
as soon as those are received, they'll be shared with the EAC.
Any other public comment? Any public comment online? Hearing none, we'll call a question. All those in favor of approving the bid, signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Thank you.
The next item is an ordinance to amend Chapter 190, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 3, parking prohibited at all times in certain locations, to establish parking regulations with respect to Wildflower Circle. The proposed ordinance prohibits parking on the east side of Wildflower Circle from Willow Pond Drive along the east side through both sides of the cul-de-sac to the west side of Wildflower Circle. Again, this is an item that was brought before the board on recommendation from the Traffic Commission. So the ordinance is ready for your potential action.
Consider a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis to amend the ordinance, Chapter 190, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 3. Any comments by the board?
This is Tangled.
Yes.
Yes.
Any public comment? Any comment online? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the ordinance to amend, signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. Ayes have it 5-0.
And the final item under my section of the agenda is consideration of approval of an ordinance to amend the Lower Makefield Township zoning ordinance relating to open space requirements. Again, this would amend the dimensional standards in residential zoning districts to provide for and establish mandatory open space requirements. There would be a minimum of 25% of the total land area would be required to be designated as open space. This is an item that the Planning Commission and the board have been working on for some time. Went through a number of iterations, and Planning Commission is recommending approval of the ordinance as presented, as is the Bucks County Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Grenier to approve the ordinance to amend Lower Makefield Township zoning ordinance relating to open space requirements. Any comments by the board? All I can say is job well done by everybody concerned. Any public comment? Any comment online?
Alan Dresser, same address as before.
Yeah, Jim's here.
Here, okay, Jim.
Jim, why not?
Jim Majewski, just simple question. On the performance tables, you have the number of units that can go on a specific piece of property. And we're changing that. And what I just want to know, I know the new number of units, say a 10-acre piece of property can have 15 housing units in the old ordinance. And hopefully with the new ordinance, it's going to be about 15 again. Is it roughly the same? I know it can't be exact. That would be too hard, but we're not getting extremes especially, no.
They're roughly going to be the same.
So for R1, R2, R3, and with the clustering and without clustering,
Correct.
pretty much the same. So just very close to each other. So,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, there's essentially equivalency provisions in here that limit number of units to be equivalent to that which would have been developed under sort of the base scenario.
And when does this take effect? It's passed.
As soon as it's signed, if we pass.
Okay, so before gray none.
It will be, yeah, as soon as it's signed. I mean, its approval tonight should either that or within a few days. Yes, I believe it's.
It's five days
5
after
days,
effect,
okay.
after enactment.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'm going to recess for a minute until we have all our supervisors back. And then we'll take the vote.
Well, I'll just babble in that time, because what I wanted to say before you moved so quickly was thank you, Chair Weiss, for shepherding this. I think the whole board worked on it and all of our committees worked on it and gave good insight that made it bigger, but I know this was something that was important to you and you brought it to the forefront, so thank you. for that.
I would say that knowing that what we have left, is definitely the thought, and I appreciate the comments.
If I could just add, the companion saldo ordinance that reflects a lot of the same standards is moving along as well. We just received, we didn't have a chance to look at it today, but Jim and I were talking right before the meeting that the Bucks County Planning Commission has already weighed in on that. So that's moving along as well. So we'll have
I hope to see that pass.
something, it should obviously, because of most of the hard work was already done, frankly, that should not take nearly as long to be ready for enactment.
And that deals with many of the open space sort of management components that were talked about and some of the topics of conversation at the Planning Commission. And I know that this board has also expressed an interest in having, so.
Hand in glove legislation.
Correct.
It's all good. Man.
And again, just to clarify, this would be for tracts in excess of 10 acres, I believe, right? Or consisting of 10 acres or more. So
Correct.
10 acres or more, this would be applicable to.
Jeopardy music.
Now that we're all back, we'll be back in order. And we will call the question. All those in favor of approving the ordinance to amend the Lower Makefield Township zoning ordinance relating to open space requirements, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate this one. Number 8, Solicitor's Report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Executive session started tonight at 6:30. It concluded just before this meeting started. All board members were present at the executive session along with Chief Kaluzzi, Mr. Croucher, and myself. Items that were discussed included litigation, informational items, and collective bargaining matters. Moving on to zoning hearing board, if that's all right with you. There are 4 matters before you. The first one, Appeal Z-23 2019, Judy Hendrickson appeals for the property located at 800 Roloffs Road. Tax parcel 20-042-278. She's requesting a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23B in order to construct a 1,260 square foot addition, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 17.8% to 20.25%, where 18% is the allowable amount. I would note that in her application, she makes affirmative representations as to stormwater mitigation to reduce I don't want to say not the effective amount, but the actual amount that would impact the impacted amount to 18% or below. So because of that, we recommend deferral on that one. The next one, unless there's a contrary sentiment from the board. Next, under B, Appeal Z-23 2020, Daniel Kostinsky for the property located at, says 0 Delaware Rim Road, the drive, I guess it is 0. Applicant requests for tax parcel 20-008-043, requesting a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23A to allow an increase in impervious surface from the existing 17.6% to 21.8%, where 18% is the allowable amount. Township Zoning Ordinance 200-69.A14 small c offense setback. and Township zoning ordinance 200-70 point capital A, a pool setback in order to install an in-ground concrete pool and pool decking. Mr. Kostinsky, like the prior applicant, has made affirmative representations to mitigate stormwater management to a percentage where that is within the allowable amount. Again, we recommend deferral unless there's a contrary sentiment. There may be for setbacks. I don't know if you have other
Just a
concerns.
quick clarification. So the impervious surface increase is related to probably the pool decking.
That's my
square footage, and obviously whatever other structure they have there. So I think one of the things we probably need to look at from a big picture, this is sort of getting off track, but I'll keep it quick. When we look at our stormwater regs, is revisiting our definition of what is impervious area specific to pools, because I think the vast majority of pool areas are not covered in our impervious surface regulations.
I think that is correct. So we recommend deferral on that again, for the primary reason that Mr. Kostinsky has affirmatively represented that he is taking stormwater mitigation measures. Item C, appeal number Z-23 2023, Christopher Heinz for the property located at 1543 Candace Lane, tax parcel 20-024-180. Applicant requests a variance from Township zoning ordinance 200-23 capital A in order to construct a covered patio, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 28.6% to 34.3%, where 28% is the allowable amount. In this particular case, there was no affirmative representation of any mitigation measures. We recommend, given especially some of the circumstances that have occurred recently, that we participate and that we urge the zoning hearing board to impose conditions that would include mitigation measures. And my partner, Barbara Kirk, has successfully been able to obtain agreement to have declarations of record. So we recommend that if the board is so inclined, that we participate for that purpose, those purposes, I should say. And we require a vote if that's
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Grenier to participate in this appeal. I'll call the question. All those signify by saying, all those that approve of this signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0.
Can I ask a question procedurally?
Sure.
You know, it's my understanding that any kind of development, requires at this point in time some type of mitigation if you're going to go over the impervious space. Like I think that's just the standard if I was following the zoning hearing board. And yet some things are coming through without that. Are we able to, without passing a resolution? And if we do, then let's put it on the agenda to say like, hey, folks, stop submitting them. We will not accept them if they do not have permanent mitigation within the plans.
You could direct your staff who accepts those to indicate to the applicants that that it would be, it's likely that they'll be opposed. I mean, on the applications, you all see it, there's all the calculations done there. So there's the opportunity for people. In fact, frankly, they also offer the different mitigation measures as well to be done. And frankly, most contractors who work for these understand that when they submit. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that you need
Consent
it.
of the board?
Yeah, that the staff should look at whether it's a form that has to be
We have
changed,
consent?
process or whatever that we
Right.
want.
So directed. Okay. All,
Jim's trying to run up here, but we're not gonna let him.
no.
Put on, next one.
He's just gonna say, so
We
noted.
have,
so
but
noted, right?
before we didn't vote. Did we vote? We voted.
Yeah, you voted on that one.
Okay.
Yes, we have
Did-
one more left, but Mr. Majewski is
It's not on.
Yeah, for all of the applications we get, we do advise the applicants that they do need to do stormwater management. Some of them don't do it at the time they submit the application. I don't believe legally we can reject their application.
right.
As long as it's complete for that. However, we do advise them of that, and oftentimes we even do the calculations for them if it's a homeowner who's doing some minor project.
They're allowed to refuse and then they'll be challenged at the zoning hearing board.
And also, their permit would be rejected in any event because our stormwater management requires that any increase in impervious surface have its stormwater effect mitigated in some way. And so, regardless of what happens, the zoning hearing board could even say you don't need to have stormwater management, but our ordinance still say they do, so they would have to do it no matter what.
I'm gonna still ask you to look at it because if we have.
You can ask the question on the on the online form. You can add that.
Actually, that's a good suggestion. Just take our form and just say, please
or no.
provide your stormwater management.
Or do you refuse or whatever?
Well,
But we actually do have the form on there now that I think about it.
That's what I thought, yeah, that's on there.
Yeah, it's already on there, but some people just, I don't know what
well,
their
that's
issue
what I want
is.
to look into, right? Because I don't think, I understand the zoning hearing is a very competent board and they have an independent duty and they do a great job, but we need to enforce what are the rules, which is you want to develop, we want you to develop, but you got to mitigate the water. So don't do it. Don't do it.
Or else.
Or else.
So here we are.
Okay.
Which is a good segue to the last one. Appeal Z-23-2024 Renee Rodriguez for the property located at 1632 South Crescent Boulevard, tax parcel 20-039-174. Applicant requests a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-69.A14 small a in order to construct a shed that is placed less than 10 feet from the side yard, for 10 feet is allowable, and placed not in the fourth of the lot furthest from the road, and Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23 B, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 21.7% to 22.4%. Where 18% is the allowable amount. We recommend participation. There was no stormwater mitigation in this one, and we're only recommending participation again for that same purpose, not for the location of the shed in the quadrant, but actually for the impervious surface issue. That would be our recommendation for the same reason. So it would require a vote.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor McCartney to participate in appeal Z-23-2024. Any further comment? Any public comment? Call the question. All those in favor, signify by saying aye, raise your hand. Aye. Ayes have it 5-0.
Thank you. That's
Thank
all.
you, sir. Number 10, community development. Consider approval of final major subdivision for 1566 LLC.
Good evening, John Van Liveny from East Burning Gray. I represent the applicants, the two property owners involved here. You granted preliminary approval of this subdivision last June. Terms of approval were confirmed in Mr. Trulow's July 21, 2022
I think that's correct, yes.
letter. And at that time, there was one waiver that you deferred, which was the request for a waiver of tree replacement. There were some facts that needed to be gathered. We filed revised plans then in January, if I remember right, this year. I think the plans were dated to December 28 of 2022. We also needed to get a variance, or two variances from the zoning hearing board to cross the stream to serve the two lots that are on the south side of the stream with public sewer. That variance was granted in February. We appeared before the Planning Commission in April, and there are probably 10 or 12 pages of minutes from that meeting. There was extensive discussion of the plan. We went through all the review letters, and at the end of that, the Planning Commission suggested that perhaps the way to resolve the tree replacement issue, because our position was that there's just not room on the property to replace them, and we understand that you normally would request a fee in lieu. What we discussed was the possibility of a combination where we would plant the trees that are shown on the plan. We would put in escrow the difference between that number and the total number of replacement caliper inches. And we would find spaces, hopefully with the work of the township, with the cooperation of the township, to plant additional trees so that we could maximize the number of trees, replacement trees that would be planted, and get credit for that. And in the meantime, the township continues to hold the balance of the money. If there's not room to plant, you hold whatever is left and you take it for your fund, your tree fund. We had a site meeting with representatives of the township. The assistant manager was out there. The environmental consultant was out there representing the EAC's interest or the township's interest. We walked the entire property. As a result of that, the township's environmental engineer recommended a number of places where it appeared that it may be possible to put more trees. She would know better, and everyone would know better once the development is graded out and we know where these spaces are. And since that time, Mr. Truelove, and with the assistance of Barbara Kirk, prepared a draft approval letter, which they were kind enough to forward to me last month for review. We've worked through a couple of very minor issues in that, and that letter then summarizes what the recommendation is with respect to the replacement tree issue. And that's summarized in paragraph 4 of David's review letter. The rest of the review letter, or the rest of the approval, draft approval letter, or condition reflects the conditions essentially as discussed with the Planning Commission. Also restates some of the waivers that were granted by this board back in July. And at this point, after going through all of this, the draft resolution is acceptable in all respects to the applicant. We see no issues, and I said, I think they were all thoroughly vetted with the Planning Commission. I'd be more than happy to go through any of the issues that you have. By the way, I'm substituting for my engineer who's on vacation tonight, but I think I probably at this point know the plans almost as well as he does. It's been a couple of years. We've been trying to work through
We've
this.
been doing this for a while, Mr. Van Leeuwen, so you probably have acquired an engineering degree, officially anyway. One issue that you and I discussed as well, and maybe Mr. Majewski could weigh in, there still is the outstanding issue, the animal pen, which we discussed separately today. I think the concerns by some are whether there's its location would require variance and or whether it could be moved. So
Correct.
Your input on that would be helpful. And Jim, if you have any other input on that as well from that perspective.
Well, Jim and I have discussed it several different times, and I think there's several different issues. One is the issue of the fact that there is an existing animal pen that is fenced that encroaches on a wetlands buffer, which is shown on this plan, but has not previously been shown on any other plans. And the issue there, in my perspective, we discussed this at the Planning Commission meeting to some extent, is that the Katzoff property, the Katzoffs own a large property there with an historic house. I think some of you know the property. It's a beautiful property. They're involved. Their property initially is involved only because the extension of Buck Creek Drive is on property that they own. They're just giving up a little sliver there. However, in discussion, it made sense to just add property from the former Loftus property, which is the 1566 LLC property, and transfer some additional acreage to the Katzoffs. So there is no development taking place on the existing Katzoff property at all. They have an existing animal pen there, which of course is a permitted accessory use on this property. It's been there for a while. I think the issue that Jim identified for me today was that there is apparently an existing drainage easement that the fence encroaches in. And that to me is a more serious question. I find I have a number of technical issues that I would make with the ordinance that says the wetland buffer doesn't apply to this particular set of circumstances. I can't, however, argue that if the drainage easement prohibits any structures in it and the township owns the easement, the township has the right to compel the removal of the fence. So it's probably not an issue, Mr. Truelove, if the easement requires, if the removal is required to comply with township ordinances, especially the easement encroachment, we will remove it, or we resolve it to the satisfaction of the township zoning staff.
You would agree either to have it removed or to
relocate,
file for relief with the zoning hearing board if necessary.
Correct, if we determine that that's what the
Okay,
easement
and
says.
that's want to make sure that we have that on the record.
And my client has said if necessary, he will relocate the fence. We're not likely to get into an argument over that.
And Jim, I'm just looking at you, that's your understanding as well?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And what's an animal pen? What are we talking about? Chickens? Dogs?
No, there are There's sheep, lamb, and goats in there, but the last time, when I walked it for the, yes, with the,
Empty.
for the site
I
meeting,
think sheep and goats.
and it's a post and rail fence, it doesn't, it's not like a stockade fence, it doesn't hold back any water, water runs right through it, but,
And the area between that and where the little stream comes through, I think that's another area we identified as an area where trees would be appropriate.
right, potentially after, yeah, exactly.
But just so I'm following along, the sheep and the goat are on an easement potentially and maybe near wetlands?
No,
No.
they're not in the wetlands. I mean,
Buffer.
the fence is in what's called a wetland buffer. And my read of the ordinance says it's not real clear that you can't have a fence, at least an animal fence in there. If you read your definition in the zoning ordinance of the term fence, this is not a fence by definition under the zoning ordinance.
I can't wait to put up not a fence in my backyard.
Yep, if you have animals, you can. We're not here to argue.
All right, well then I guess to at least get this before the board officially, we would have a motion and which it would be to, and I won't read the entire letter because I think that hopefully the board's seen it, but to, the motion would be to, approve the, application, is indicated for 1566 LLC subdivision, with the terms and conditions set forth in the now August 3rd, 2023 letter, that was authored by us and submitted to Mr. Van Louvenay and reviewed by Mr. Majewski, with the additional condition that the animal pen issue will be resolved either by relocating the fence and or making any necessary applications for zoning relief if determined by the staff of the Lower Makefield Township zoning office. And for purpose of the motion, would that be acceptable to you, Mr.
Absolutely.
All right, so we would need a motion for that, just to have discussion and then go from there.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? I'll second.
All right, now it's before you for this discussion and questions. So,
Take it down the line. Mr. Grenier?
Helps if I turn on my microphones. So in terms of I want to make sure I understand the request on the trees. It sounds like it's going along the lines of our in lieu fee program, but it's sort of in the middle where it's allowing them an opportunity to potentially, rather than leaving the money in the program, to try and plant some trees at some point along the way to reduce the amount of money in the program.
On the site, yes, on
On the
the site
site.
of development, yes.
Only on the site, not any other location.
Correct, right.
Only on the site, that is correct. If you've read the EAC's letter, they suggested that they didn't accept our representation, that we thought we had maximized the number of trees that could be planted, given the fact that this was a heavily wooded property. And I think the consultant who attended our walkthrough agreed, at least as of now. When the property is developed, it may be clearer that there are some places, and my client said he's much happier to put the proper trees up. He's not just trying to get out of planting the trees. There just isn't room to do it.
Right.
And we do have some issues, you don't just plant trees, you have to plant them in places where they're going to grow and where they're going to survive.
Yeah. So I guess the only thing,
I could read these, if you'd like me to read, because it's very specific, I'll be happy to do that if you want.
yeah, I just want to make sure that on that
that's fine.
specific one, make sure that there's a time limit on that. So we're.
And
not
let me
saying-
read, I do want to read the whole letter because obviously you've given the time, but I thought that this issue is, I know, a very important one. I mean, all of them are important, but this is one I think it's of a special concern.
Yeah.
Condition, paragraph number 4, referenced by Mr. Van Louvenay earlier. Installation of replacement trees is otherwise in accordance with section 178-85H4 of the ordinance. That would be the Saldo ordinance. And such amount is determined by the township in consideration of the planting of additional plant materials in the following areas: the perimeter of the basin of the terminus of Buck Creek Drive. Next, along the northern property line shared with 1531 Buck Creek Drive. Next, adding wet tolerant trees to the rain gardens on the new residential lots. Next, around the paddock. Next, around the pond. Next, in the far backyard of the main house, and then along the western property line shared with 1078 Creamery Road. Besides the plantings listed above, The applicant shall pay a fee in lieu of planting 754 replacement trees based on the township's calculation of the total number of required replacement trees in accordance with the ordinance, less the number of replacement trees as shown on the plan, which fee shall be held in escrow by the township. As development occurs and as additional replacement trees are planted, a portion of the fee in lieu shall be released in such amount as determined by the township in accordance with the ordinance. Upon completion of the development, any fees remaining in escrow for the replacement trees will be retained by the township as the final fee in lieu of planting any additional replacement trees. Approved tree specimens in accordance with the recommendations of the township's engineer, senior landscape architect are evergreen native trees for shade, the American holly, I'm not going to do the Latin term, and the sweet bay magnolia. Also deciduous understory trees for shade, the American hornbeam, native dogwood, and pagoda dogwood. And then rain garden trees would be the river birch and bald cypress, all as more fully outlined by the township's engineer, senior landscape architect in her email communication dated May 5th, 2023. In addition to the foregoing, this is in paragraph 5, and as recommended by the township's EAC by letter dated February 10th, 2023, you shall move the location of the proposed bayberry tree to avoid planting in the easement area traversing the wetlands and wetlands buffer, and substitution of northern bayberry for the southern bayberry as shown on sheet 17 of the site planting schedule table. So that's how specific we wanted to make sure this was done. So.
Appreciate it. I guess for our engineer, from a stormwater management perspective for the plan that's been provided, my understanding is that the stormwater management plan is focused on the lots to be developed and it's not inclusive of lot D, which is the existing home.
Correct. Yeah, the existing lot has that pond pretty much associated with it. So the new lots that are looking to be developed each have a stormwater management feature on them. They're pretty much rain gardens. There is a note and a comment that we have that the infiltration testing for each of those is to be obviously completed and provided. Obviously, if for some reason it doesn't have the infiltration testing that supports what they have as their design, they have to design a different stormwater feature that would accomplish the same controls. And then those would flow from there. If it had the need to continue to flow on after the rain garden, it flows to that stream that goes to the pond. All that is then to Buck Creek is the end point of where this development winds up.
That's where my concern lies, because in that sort of the treatment train or the flow going into those ponds, which are not, these are man-made ponds that
Correct.
go under a bridge on the existing property,
But actually, there's a dam.
which is even worse. That's what I'm
Well,
getting to.
except
So
there's,
please,
except.
let me
that's-
finish, please.
All right.
Okay, so a dam, which I'm not seeing online that there are any dam safety permits in here or dam management plans. I did see a report from Princeton Hydro that said that the water's clean in the pond, but I saw nothing with respect to the dam, the O&M of the dam, responsibilities for the dam, any permits for the dam. And when we look at stormwater flows, especially what we've seen tonight and over the last few weeks, putting more flow through a man-made pond that has not been designed or permitted, that is also a dammed portion of Buck Creek. I have major concerns about that. So I would not be willing to approve this project as is without all of those things being considered as part of that pond, with the dam, the bridge that goes over there, and understanding the flows that go in both into the pond and then come out of the pond as a result of this development.
That's a valid concern, especially with obviously the extent of the stormwater discussions we've had, especially recently. I'll mention, I'm sure the applicant can expand on that, the stormwater features as far as the ability to manage stormwater on each of those lots post-construction compared to pre-construction. Each of those meet all the ordinance requirements that the township has to handle the water on those specific lots, where currently there's nothing, in place that would manage the water as it falls. It would all flow down to the pond. So that's been reviewed and meets all the township requirements for a post-construction or added lot. I'll toss it to you if you'd like to expand if the dam O&Ms and that kind of thing can be.
I can tell you that when the dam was there, when my clients bought, when the Catsaws bought their property 40 years ago, And during the time, DEP has come out on several different occasions and to do inspections is required that they do work and maintain it. So it's in the spotlight. I don't know whether, I haven't done an online search to see if it's there. But I've talked to Mr. Katzoff, who assures me that he spent some money at DEP's request to maintain that dam. So it is in their jurisdiction, and it's his responsibility to maintain the dam because it's on his property, but it is subject to DEP oversight.
That documentation that can be provided and you know.
To the extent we have some,
latest
I mean, what he
inspections.
tells me is they'll show up periodically, they'll take a look and they'll say, you need to do A, B, and C, does A, B, and C, they come back and look. I mean, it's been that informal, but
Yeah, so.
I don't know when the dam was created, but it was more than 40 years ago.
So when there's a dam safety inspection
Correct.
form that has to happen. You also have to come up with a dam safety plan, signed and sealed by an engineer, not the DEP, but a private engineer, an engineering consultant. So until we have all of that information in place, I don't know that this is something that we could, where we may be putting a hardship on the neighbors, where we may be creating a safety issue. Without
I
having
don't
that
understand your
simply do not know.
observation. I don't understand that observation or that comment.
Let me explain.
I mean,
So-
I know a lot about
No.
stormwater. I've been.
So do I. I have a
for long
master's
time.
degree
I
in it.
know you do. You know more than I do, obviously, but.
So would you, I know you're an attorney that loves to talk over board members that disagree with you, and I don't really appreciate that. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is we've had many of our residents out of their homes over these last few weeks because of massive stormwater damage. And we've been looking throughout all of our ordinances, we've been looking throughout our township to see what we can do to improve. And here we have a pond that was built without permits, that is a dam on Buck Creek, which is a major creek in our town that we're concerned about from a flooding perspective, providing flow through there that is for our purposes is unmanaged. We don't have permits, we don't have data, we don't have calculations. The only information we have on that pond is some water quality testing that Princeton Hydro did. We don't have any other data to support any of the claims that, yes, that dam's being inspected and meets DEP's all over it, and it's perfect. Let's go with it. I can't go with that. I need hard data to say that this one, and I'm surprised there's a dam in the first place that probably wouldn't get approved anymore. But two, we need to better understand what the potential downstream implications are of this development on others in case that dam fails. Or if there's another 1,000-year storm event, God forbid. In this area, what is the downstream impact here? I don't know what the purpose of this pond is, if it's just because it's something they like to have on their property.
They didn't build it.
No, well, they own, you build it.
They own it. That's correct.
They own it though. That's the problem. So we need, I think, and they're trying to subdivide a large property, make millions of dollars on it, more than likely.
Well, they're not
Without-
subdividing their property.
They're,
They are not subdividing their property. They're
they're
not
doing this entire development without addressing this pond. And that's my concern, that they're doing this entire development without addressing the pond and the dam in Buck Creek.
But just add, I guess, with the stormwater that, you know, is part of the proposed plans and being that the pond and the structure, you know, I guess the dam structure is in existing condition. The fact that they're improving the stormwater on these lots, you know, like I mentioned, post compared to existing, would it be agreeable that the condition would be that they provide the periodic inspections that has the dam, sure that it's in good order?
It strikes me, I'm not sure what records exist, but it strikes me, and I think the planning commission agreed, that the NPDES permitting process is also going to give consideration to the same issues that you've identified. And if we don't get the permit, or if they require additional observation, additional testing, or additional proof, they'll come back and we won't have the permit. But the NPDES process is going to be designed to do that. In the interim, in my opinion, we meet all the township's ordinance criteria. And we have a preliminary approval of a plan designed exactly this way. I just don't see a basis to withhold an approval.
So the NPDES process is based on bare minimum state regulations to get a stormwater approval, right? Here we have, again, a dam on two ponds on Buck Creek, where there's historic flooding on Buck Creek. We have no permits, no approvals, no history on this dam to say that it's in any good working order or not. We have no basis for that. Nothing's been presented, nothing. So we're just saying, okay, sounds good. To me, everything we just talked about tonight, 2 weeks ago, about developing an overall plan, we're going to look out for we're going to review, because of the health, safety, and welfare of our residents, we're going to review all these things in a much, rather than do the bare minimum, we're going to go through, and it's our responsibility to our residents to make sure this is okay. I don't want to pass the buck to the County Conservation District. I don't want to pass the buck to the DEP. The buck should stop here.
Not arguing with you, but we were complaining compliance with your ordinance requirements. That's where, you can't ask my client to comply with an ordinance requirements that you don't have in place. That's the issue. We have a preliminary approval. We spent 2 years on this. We've worked very hard. We've gone to the trouble of getting Princeton High Road to do the study, which I don't believe they were required to do under your ordinances, but we did them. You now have a baseline to determine whether this project is or isn't going to have any kind of an impact.
I don't want to speak for Mr. Grenier, but I think one of the concerns based on, this first time I've heard about this dam is whether or not our own stormwater management ordinance is implicated by this, by the dam and by the consequences of that.
The dam is a huge concern because we don't have any information around it. Whether it's stormwater management, dam safety, or anything else where this development may impact that dam and the surrounding ponds and the surrounding homes.
Just real quick, Mr. Van Luven, I am looking at the Princeton Hydro report and it looks like it's just basic temperature, pH, water quality type.
It was the report that was required. If a water quality management report were required by your ordinances, that meets your ordinance criteria.
I think what Supervisor Grenier is saying is that I don't know if that's really germane to what he's looking for. So he's looking more.
No, it's not. I agree with that. No question.
So, and just to reiterate, you have no evidence of DEP inspections at this pond.
Only my client's word, which I've known him for 40 years, but other than that, no, I don't. I'm sure DEP somewhere has a record of their inspections.
Is he required by DEP to come out? Does he have a?
DEP has a maintenance program and
so he has a record of it.
I agree with Mr. Grenier. I'm sure it's not a permitted dam. It was put in a long, long time ago. And they come out, they've made him rebuild certain sections of it, as he told me through the years, to do whatever they told him to do, he had to do. And that's what every property owner who has a dam is required to do.
Do you know when the last inspection was?
I have no idea.
Yeah, so that doesn't make me feel comfortable, not having an idea when the last inspection does. Basically, what's, specifically what's been happening in the last.
This
3 or 4
project
weeks.
is not going to affect that dam. The water eventually gets there, but right now you have uncontrolled flow coming off substantial impervious surfaces that exists on this property already with no controls. I don't see how certainly I would agree with any dam fails.
Or are you adding more impervious surface with 6 homes there?
There's probably a slight increase, but it's all going to be controlled and the release is going to be controlled. It's not going uncontrolled, whatever's there right now.
We can't guarantee that because we don't know what this dam is or whether or not.
I can't guarantee what. I can guarantee that we're complying with your stormwater regulations as far as all the additional development is concerned. So the rate of runoff is certainly going to decrease. And in the meantime,
I think what my fellow supervisors is trying to tell you, right? Like we're at a moment in time where we have.
I think you're putting
Can
a
I
condition
please-
on me
can I
that is
please?
impossible to be fulfilled, is what I'm telling you.
Well, that's nice, but I didn't like when Dan got snarky before, especially as a fellow member of the bar. I hate when people take pop shots at attorneys, but if I'm talking, then please let me finish and then you can talk and we'll go back and forth in a civilized fashion. But I think what the supervisors are trying to message to you is at this moment in time, we have concerns that maybe you can take a pause, come back in the future and answer and alleviate those concerns because of the dam, because of the ponds, because of its association with this creek. There's big concerns here. So I hope that makes sense to you.
My question would be, on what basis would the plan be turned down? We have a vested right to final approval in accordance with preliminary approval. We've decided we have no outstanding stormwater comments from the review engineers, except for the obvious ones that you can't put the things in without substantiating the testing requirements, which we understand, the infiltration requirements.
My understanding, Mr. Van Leeuwen, is that information about the dam was first discovered by the board tonight, and I'll say by myself, not that I'm an engineer, so my opinion doesn't matter on that. But as a result of that, coupled with some of these other concerns that are discussed with the stormwater management ordinance, what impact, if any, does that have? And that's something that the board, I think, especially given the events of late, would consider a pause just to get, if there are DEP permits, any DEP file information, which could talk about that, and maybe even a relook at once that information is available, whether that has any impact on stormwater management. I don't want to, again, speak for the board, but that's what I'm hearing. Is that correct? At least that's at a minimum.
Agree with that, Sam.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis, do you have any comments?
I think my fellow supervisors have covered it adequately.
Any public comment?
We have one public comment online.
Okay, we have one.
One in the room. First.
You get to go first.
You get to go first.
Kathy Tipton, 1078 Creamery Road. I've been here before. To say that I will miss what I see in my backyard is an understatement. We bought our house so that we could see the nice woods and the animals, and I have my concerns about, you're talking about trees. I want to make sure that I have the privacy that I have now. So I did hear that there are going to be trees at the 1078 Creamery Road, but my concern is, and just say along my property line, they put 20 trees. But what happens if only 5 of them take? Are they going to replace the trees that died? Because I don't have the privacy that I was guaranteed.
There is a maintenance bond period after that, just so you know, of 18 months, not whether.
18 months, okay.
That's long enough, yeah.
Second, I was worried myself about the water because the storm that happened, it was the first time that I actually saw. I stood at the bottom of my driveway and I looked towards Yardley Newtown Road. The Torbert farm was to my right. Barbara's house, the Raskies that live next to me, and the water coming from the farm was over the road. And there was a Pico pole that was in front of Barbara's house for a couple weeks. Well, that pole is now in front of the house. That's how much water was there that actually pushed that pole up to her front door. So I'm not sure the water was I have video, it was up to the doors of the people that were driving. So I'm sure that the water that was going in between the two houses where that pathway goes, I don't know what it's called, that was going back towards the Loftus property, which then goes to his property. So I'm not sure how much flooding they actually had, but I mean, it was immense. So, I mean, I'm worried about that is water. Right now I have trees in my backyard. I have a whole bunch of grass, bushes. Now you're going to have asphalt. You're going to have concrete. You're going to have people that are going to maybe want to have a pool, want to maybe have a deck, something. All of that water has got to go somewhere. You got to make sure that all of the drainage is going to go downhill to that area and not over into my house. That is a concern. I just hope it's all this is thought about before it's finalized. They really need to know where the water, the trees, and make sure everybody's protected. Thank you.
Thanks.
There's a public comment online? There's one more in the house.
Yes, there's one online. I can bring Judy. Oh,
No, well, one more in the house.
okay.
This is quick. I just really have a question. Adrian Costello, 2122 North Crescent Boulevard. If this dam was at one property down, different owner, what questions and what sort of issues would we be talking about right now?
I think similar to what
Just like in terms of the application process, I'm just curious.
Sure.
Like, would there be a hold on the application to find out like like the same things you're asking for?
If he was applying for a
Or is this
variance, I would
just because
imagine,
the
right?
developer happens to own the property that the pond is on?
I mean, for me, I would say if he was, if it was a house over and the applicant was applying, or if somebody was applying for a variance, then it would probably be under the same scrutiny. You know,
Okay.
obviously, we're dealing with, there's probably a bunch of properties in Lower Makefield Township that have these violations on it, or concerns, I shouldn't say violations, but these concerns on them. When they're brought before a board for
Yeah.
approval, I think it's our, responsibility to chime in and say, hey, let's make this right.
Okay. No, and I understand, believe me, I'm well aware of the last couple of weeks, so.
Sure.
And the new scrutiny and that kind of thing. I was just sitting there thinking, I'm just trying to say like, there's a couple of different dynamics or potential dynamics going on. And if we knew there was a dam and it was one house down, how do you get a developer to go check a dam that's not even on their property? I don't know if that's, I'm just asking, are we just asking this because it's a little more convenient because the same people are involved? That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
I know you don't really want an answer, but I'll give you one anyways. I wouldn't say it's convenient. I would say like we are obligated to look over the totality of the project. I know you're not picking on us. I appreciate that, but I'm just like how I think of it. It's not like, we're in that area, so we should look around everything in that area. That might be nice, but we can't do it. But there's a piece of property that exists in one way today, and when this is approved and developed, it's going to exist in another way, and we are obligated to look and think about the impact. And I didn't know it rained over in Europe, so.
We have one more public comment? Online? Anybody there?
There's no public comment online?
Oh, yep, I can bring Judy in now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Judy's
I
in the
just wanna
room with
say
us now.
thanks.
All right,
Just
Judy, give your
quickly,
full
thanks.
name and whether you're a Lower Makefield resident.
Of course I am. Judith Curley. Ken knows me. Yeah, quickly. Suzanne and all you other Grenier, you are rock stars. You have served, and I want to correct Lisa, you don't get paid. Yep. Yeah.
Yep, I can bring Judy in now.
Yeah, please do. I want to correct Lisa. You all don't get paid. Right? Fred, you get paid? No, you don't get paid.
Judy's in the room with us now.
We
Yeah,
do get paid.
you don't
We
get
paid-
paid.
We get paid big money.
Yep.
I get
You
$300
don't get
a
paid.
month.
Right.
300 a month.
Pre-tax, pre-tax.
I
Pre-tax.
live downriver. I've lived here. You live on the river and just public servants. You have served, and I want
Hate to interrupt, but Judy, if you're watching on Facebook, could you mute the feed?
I'm just gonna say thank you. And the gentleman at the table, get a new job. Good night. We're all gonna, You don't get paid. I live downriver. I've lived here. You live on the river, and
That's the feedback.
the risk is there. But thank you for serving, Suzanne and Dan. Thank you. Good night.
But Judy, if you're watching on Facebook, could you mute the feed?
No, I'm going to bed. Good night.
Is there any other public comment?
There's no other public comment online.
Okay.
Mr. Van Louven, do you have anything else you would like?
Yeah, I do. I'd like to try to put a point of focus on this. I don't remember exactly where you stand with an extension, but you're probably going to ask me for one, or
Well, I was going to suggest that perhaps it may be something worthwhile to consider.
or you're going to frame a motion to deny it. So the question I would ask is, what is it exactly that you're looking for? And what is the standard that I'm going to be held to, or my client is going to be held to? What is it exactly that we're being asked to do?
Well, to the best that I can answer that question tonight, and again, I'll get any input from the board on this, is the impact, if any, of the existence of the dam and the man-made pond and information that may be available from DEP about the structure and about the pond that may impact on stormwater management issues in the township. Is that a fair assessment? I don't want to,
Including documentation of an approved permit.
and that, including that, so.
Sorry, I missed the last.
Including documentation of an approved permit for the dam.
I don't believe there is a permit. It's deemed to have a permit by virtue of the fact that it predates the regulations.
Yes,
That's
well,
my
any,
recollection.
what
Any
goes, yeah,
documentation.
so that would be before 1978, obviously you're talking about because of Act 167. 's
Let's
enacted.
assume that hypothetically, that the pond has been inspected. And
So two ponds,
I don't know how many times, but
No, that there's the dam and there's two ponds.
the dam's one of the two ponds. All correct.
Depending on how you define it, there's a,
Depends, yeah.
the
There is- there's a
driveway
bridge later,
bridge,
that's
there's
correct,
sort
yes.
of
Yeah.
two large pond-like structures that are connected hydrologically, whether you consider that one pond or two.
That's right.
is-
Yeah.
Is what it is.
The driveway goes across it and there's one on either side of the driveway. That's right.
Yeah.
It's a fairly large pond. I don't think there's any question about that.
And I think the issue is whether stormwater management issues that will impact not only that property, but any other property downstream.
If the water management plan is for everything to go into the pond, then we definitely need to know the documentation, the DEP inspects it, and a history of the maintenance. And maybe somebody telling us that knows that this will handle, I guess the pond will handle the,
That's been established, I think, by the stormwater report, but
if that's, I mean, as long as we have that documentation, I think. Is that what we're talking about, Mr. Grenier?
Just basic information so that we have some assurances exactly about the.
System won't be
You
over.
know, it's something that's reviewed by our engineer once the information is received, correct?
I can provide it, but I certainly can provide it. Now, let's make it another hypothetical assumption that you're not satisfied with the frequency that DEP inspects the pond. I mean, you're going to put a condition on me that DEP come out and inspect. I don't know how I would satisfy that.
Well, I'm not sure that we have the jurisdiction to compel DEP to do that, but I guess there would be some way through the Bucks County Conservation District or some other entity that would have jurisdiction, at least coordinate inspections on a regular basis, something like that. I mean, frankly, it's too early to tell because we don't know what the documentation says or doesn't say.
Point being is we're not trying to dictate what the DEP does.
Right.
We just have no information whatsoever to support anything. So if the DEP has a case file, whether it be a permit or no permit, but an O&M management plan, a history of inspection reports, any after action, basically the whole history of the dam, we just don't have any information to support anything. So I respect the fact that you're telling us, your clients told you this, so you want to believe your client. I get that, but at the same time, we need to be able to support that.
Problem that I have, quite honestly, is we've been going through this process for a year and a half, and this is the first time that any request has been made relating to the dam by the EAC didn't request any information. The Planning Commission didn't. This is an issue that's coming up tonight. My first time I've heard it.
It's the
I
first
haven't
time
seen
some of
it.
us have heard it too.
Haven't
Mr.
seen it in
Benjamin.
any of the review letters. I mean, you're all of a sudden you're asking the applicant to provide information that probably could have easily been provided and had never been requested.
We weren't aware of it. Some of us weren't aware of it anyway, I can say that. So
All right.
I guess the question is if will entertain an extension, what would be, I mean, given the practicalities of obtaining the information, having an engineer review, what period of time would be a reasonable time for an extension?
Very difficult question because there've been a lot of commitments made based on the status of the plans at the present time, and I don't have the luxury of a lot of time, quite honestly. But I certainly have the authority to give you what's the current extension, Dave? Do you know, is the end of this month? I think I gave you till the end of August.
Actually, I think it was just till August 4th. I think it was just.
I think I made an Obama birthday joke.
Just a couple of days from now, I think. It was just the end of this week.
I would give to the end of September. That gives us like almost 60 days. That would be,
September 30th.
Yeah, with the understanding that if I have the documentation, I come back here, provide it to you, discuss it with you and see where we are. I have no basic objection. I just kind of feels like an ambush to me. And
I understand your sentiment, Mr. Van Leeuwen. I will say that, again, the first time I heard about a dam, was
David, I'm
an hour ago.
I understand that.
All right.
Not blaming you or anybody else, but
No.
it makes it very difficult to prepare for a meeting when you don't know what the issue is.
Well, and I understand that. It was difficult. They can't hear, but we're all learning a lot tonight. So, all right. So, but we appreciate that. It's on the record. You will agree to the.
I will, I'll follow that up with a letter to Jim.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion
See
to?
what we can do.
I guess a motion to table till, up and until the date of the extension. So we have time to.
I'll work through David and or Jim and tell them that this is all I can get. And when I have all I can get, then I'll ask to be back in front of you. We can have a further discussion.
Yeah, so what's, we talking about the second, September meeting?
Yes.
20th?
No later than that. Yeah.
Later in this,
Later then, I know I'm not.
I'll entertain a motion to table until September 20th, no later.
So
than
moved.
20th.
Second.
And Louis going to be in Arizona.
Oh, we hear the second September meeting, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Figure it out.
All right.
So, motion to table until, no later than 20th of September, made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor McCartney. Any other comment? Any public, there's no public comment.
And it'll be conditioned also upon the extension that Mr. Van Louis.
Extension letter.
Provide, yes.
That's a letter from the board. Okay, there's no comment on this, motion to table.
I do that.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you, Mr. Van.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Item 11, supervisors reports. I have nothing to report. Ms. Bundy,
I have nothing to.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes, I have one item. The Disability Advisory Board is down 2 members. And if you're interested in accessibility issues and ways to make sure the township and its resources and its capabilities are available for everyone, I urge you to apply. The group is very good. They do some interesting stuff in terms of reviewing plans to make sure things are accessible, helping out with issues of accessibility and disability awareness within the community. And again, I urge you to apply. As always, you can make your request by emailing your resume to admin@lmt.org. And that's all I have to report.
Ms. McCartney,
And nothing to report at this time.
Grenier.
Just that the Trent Mercer Citizens Airport Review Board met and they are following up on several issues and maybe reaching out to our board with some recommendations.
Any other business?
Mr. Chair, just real quick, as a follow-up to a conversation that I was having earlier with Isaac regarding Maple Vale. Can we direct the professionals and Isaac to maybe give us a worst or best worst case scenario down at Maple Vale if there is an opportunity for us to come up with a full comprehensive plan which may include eminent domain of certain homes in order to make that the entire neighborhood safe? Is that something that the board would look to support or want to hear?
Excellent.
It's just like almost a worst case scenario type, I think, right?
I think my thought on that is when we look at the overall watershed approach that we're gonna do, and when I think about that watershed specifically.
Sure.
All things on the table, that would be part of it as a worst case.
Okay.
And I would say, throw it in, so everything is being considered at once. That would be my recommendation.
So we'll just work the issue and see how things.
Kind of comprehensive, including
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Yeah, and that's generally what's been conveyed. So that issue came up from the property owners impacted.
Sure.
And so I think what we communicated to them in the field is that we're going to look at sort of all the options to try to address upstream conditions. And if part of the solution results in that, then that would be part of the solution that we would bring back.
That's all. I just wanted to make sure it was part of the discussion, even though it's, I guess when you can't guarantee anything until you actually do the entire analysis, which includes upstream. But if there is, you know, unfortunately, if that has to be part of the process, it has to be part of the process, you know?
Yeah, we spoke to, how much flow can go through pipes that we can put into the roads. Obviously, the next step to that could be where does the next, storm intensity, amount of flow go? And then to your point, does that mean, if you want to actually contain or manage a greater volume storm coming down, where can that be channeled?
Mitigated, yeah.
That's where you have to look at maybe options like that to look at additional space.
Cool.
On the above ground.
That's all I had, sir. Thank you.
Any other business? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.